call to the Middleton City Hall. It's 7 o'clock, and I'm going to call the meeting of the Middleton Plan Commission for Tuesday, March 12th, 2019 to order. Okay, so the first item is the roll call.
Commissioner Paulson.
Here.
Hubbard.
Here.
Farrar.
Here.
Fertiher.
Here.
Ramsey.
Here.
Murray.
Here.
Here.
7 present.
All right, so it's not 7:05 yet, so let's go to the minutes.
Move to approve. Second.
So all those in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the minutes are approved. So we have 5 minutes, so which, should we take the,
Well, item 2, the
okay?
Fuddruckers.
intro and, yeah.
So who's taking that, Mark?
Sure. Abby wrote the staff comments.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try something
Actually,
tonight.
maximize the screen, I think, so we can see the full extent.
Well, okay, that's what I was going to ask. I was going to try something by keeping the comments here, but if it's too small, what do you want me to maximize?
Like the graphics.
Okay.
Well, I'm going to try this tonight to see if we can keep the staff comments on one side and the drawing on the other. But if you can't see it?
Yeah, I guess let's just have the.
All right.
Yeah, I think let's leave the staff comments, so everybody has them.
All right. So what you have before you is the old Fuddruckers building and Cheeseburgers on Paradise.
in Paradise, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a request for an SIP modification for design revisions to that former building. As Abby noted, the modifications would create a more boxy look and modify the decorative roof line heights to create a more standard flat roof design. Outdoor seating area will be walled in, so it can be used year-round. She did ask me to convey that the mechanicals will be screened, I'll read what she wrote today. The mechanicals are to be painted, is what the applicant indicated to her when she asked the question about what's going to happen with them, how they're going to look. And the signage is to be included in the approval process. So I'm happy.
Which signage? The signage on here?
On the building, right here, yep.
And that signage is, presumably would conform with SIP regs? There's no, like, waivers for that?
No, well, obviously in a PDD, we have some discretion to depart from normal standards. I actually did not review this. I'm gonna see if I can get the specifics. I don't think the heights were in here. Yeah, I don't see them here.
And the use is not an issue, it's just a
not.
building modification.
Right.
If you scroll up, I think there's the picture of the old.
No.
No.
So we're talking about signage?
Signage and all the alterations to the building. If you want, I can pull up a photo of the existing building.
No, I think we,
Start off on the signage. The signage is way too big for the space that it's sitting in. The one that you've got on the screen right now, certainly, but the other one as well, where it's touching the top and bottom of the space.
And I do have the information on signage here. It's in I'm sorry, I didn't know that this was at the bottom of the email. The sign on the east elevation is 2 feet 10 inches by 23 feet 6 inches, so it's 66 square feet. That's the east elevation. So those letter heights are just under 3 feet.
The capital A, it's all in capitals for a start, but let's ignore that. The capital A is 3 feet tall?
I'm sorry, I don't know that information. Is anybody here for this?
so they did not submit a sign package, this is,
No, they,
it
and I
looks like
think,
it was a SIP modification for
right,
building.
and I think Abby had asked them, and then they got her asked for the information about the signage, and they got her that today, and she was off today, but she still was able
Yeah.
to forward it to us, so.
Yeah.
You know, I suppose it could be the building elevation changes with the signage to come back.
These, the tacos, this band here, Tacos Amigos, et cetera, that's 9 inches by 10 feet. So those are 9-inch high letters. And then the south elevation sign combined area is 4 feet 8 inches tall. I would assume, David, that that includes the capital A's. So it's almost 5 feet tall, including the band with Tacos Amigos Tequila.
Okay, can we ignore this from the rest of the approval and just do the building?
That's fine.
So
They have
what,
to- they
what's
have to
the
come back with
objection
it.
on this, on the sign? Because,
Doesn't fit in the space. I think, what have we
Yeah.
said is the rule, that 75% of the height?
We have, it's a square footage per lineal foot. We don't have a percentage in our ordinance per se. This is part of Greenway Center, I imagine, right, Eileen? So they would have to, they have a formula that they would have to approve these signs. I assume that they have done that.
But does this fit within our square footage?
Based on the frontage rule, it would. Unfortunately, because we would allow, this is 66 square feet, and I'm sure that this frontage of this building is more than 66 square feet long, or 66 feet long. Obviously, the space it occupies, the gray area, is what you're reacting to, and I understand the concern.
Is anybody here from?
Nobody's here apparently from,
Okay, well, how about, since you don't have all the details, we prove everything else and they can come back for the
I
signs.
support that. That's be fine with me.
or would you be amenable to a motion which is, to approve the building modifications as an SAP modification and some requirements on the height of the letters that staff can just approve if they meet it, so it doesn't have to come back to us, or do you want to see it again?
I think we should see it again.
Okay.
Okay, is that okay with you?
Sure,
Okay, so is that your motion then?
sure.
Okay. So it's
Move to
already,
approve without the sign package, but the building modifications is a minor SIP.
I'll second.
is that okay with you, Jennifer? Well, any other questions or discussion? And then.
Could have brought in samples, I'm saying.
Right.
Okay, so the motion is approve the
Which has a
package
charm for this location, right?
without the signage.
Specifically the tequila.
So
All in-
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion is unanimous. Okay, it's beyond 7:05, so we're going to go to the public hearing part of it. And that is the public hearing on comprehensive plan update, which is transportation goals, strategy and action items, discussion on land use chapter and vision statement. If anybody wants to, do you want to say something? Alina?
Well, I think our intent, and I think we talked about it last time, is for each plan commission meeting, we'll have a public hearing. It's a public input session, but our attorney said we should just, call it a public hearing, because he wants people to understand that they can come and talk, so he wanted to make it, clear. And we would have a chapter or section each time, and we would also have the one from the time before revised with whatever we were able to revise. And eventually, we will be bringing you back as we go through the goal or goals, strategies and actions for each element, we'll be bringing those back, fleshed out and whole. But right now, we're just trying to make sure that we get through the vision statement, the goals, and the strategies and actions for each of the elements, or each of the combined elements as we've proposed. So,
Okay. Anybody who wants to speak on any part of it, this is your chance. Anybody who wants to provide any input? Okay, then I'm going to close that part of the hearing and move on to the next item, which is this is item number 3, extraterritorial certified survey map to create 4 residential lots. And this is Hubbard Trust 45777 and 4601 Evergreen Road, and it's in the town of Middleton.
Sorry, I need to recuse myself.
Okay, all right. So,
I was able to get the minutes this afternoon of the town board meeting where this was approved with conditions. I'm sorry I didn't have it before.
okay, thank you.
And there are conditions placed on that. And we also have the letter from Lee that was also in the packet about the driveway location. And this is what he had proposed. So, anyway, I don't know if you have specific questions, but it's an existing 2-lot certified survey map going to a 4-lot. And some of the town conditions, they approved the driveway on lot 1. But they have things like the vision triangle, where that needs to be located with respect to the driveway. They are granting a variance for the slope, for the driveway construction on lot 1. And I think that was one reason why I thought maybe it would be better to do as shown here, follows the slope.
So,
Or
but
follows it, it's right outside. It's-
that's on the existing driveway of 15%, is that what the variance?
Yeah.
Okay,
Says that a variance be granted to allow for the disturbance of 15% slopes for driveway construction on proposed lot 1. And
Right.
Also, they also asked that they show all trees. I'm sorry, a variance to show all trees be shown in CSM because it's entirely wooded, and that would be a great deal of effort compared to what normally. So they are granted a variance to show all the trees, they don't have to do that. And then they deal with the park fees and no public recreational trail easements. Anyway, essentially, just recommending that if it's approved subject to the conditions of the town. That's typically what we do, if they have conditions. And I apologize that we didn't have it in time to put in the packet, the conditions.
I didn't understand the lot line, I'm sorry. The road, the access moving to the lot line?
Well, right, moving to, instead of having it extend,
Instead of it going through the site?
instead of going all the way through lot 1.
Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't looking at the yellow line.
There's an
on-
existing
yeah,
driveway
okay.
now, but
It's right
only
here.
part of the road, I
Right.
think.
Okay.
I don't know
So the-
how far it is. I think the applicant might be here. There might be some, if you have questions.
Where's the existing lot lines?
They're fairly unique.
Yeah, it's an oddly shaped parcel,
Yeah.
because it's
I don't know that
next to
we-
a,
I don't know that I have that here. It's probably in the file, Mark. I think we might have that. I'm not sure.
Well, actually, I was just
Oh,
gonna,
okay, that's a good idea.
so if I remember from the materials, the main issue is the driveway. Which, is that usually a condition of a CSM to show where a driveway would be? Because you're gonna record the various easements.
Right, and it might not necessarily be if there are reasons to have a joint driveway, that would be, it'd be steep slopes and wooded areas and
Okay.
either that or the point that it conflicts with.
And
the
these are steep
town.
slopes,
Yeah,
right?
I think the whole area is. Oh, there's,
So-
good, thanks, Mark.
so for context, we're dealing with this property line to the north, this one on the west side, and then this is I'm outlining the property. So currently, there's this lot, which is one of the lots, and then this lot. And that's what's being divided into,
4 lots.
so you can see this part that extends to the south.
So the,
You can kind of see the existing lot
Yeah,
lines on
and
there.
so here, this residence which exists today, where if you see what I'm pointing to, is right here. So the existing house is on a lot that is a completely different configuration, and the driveway may or may not, it probably is right along the edge here, I'm guessing.
this parcel that's directly southwest, that's Laufenberg's?
Laufenberg.
Saw the name,
Well, this,
That's one of the applicants, I think.
that's not part of this application.
No, Hidden Oaks is directly to the west of this and
Right.
also to the south
And Hidden Oaks is in the city,
in the
Right.
city.
but this is in the town.
Yes.
so the city wraps around, oops, sorry. So this is the city limits right here.
Yep.
This is a city-owned outlet.
There's currently no plans, for this to be annexed into the city and be developed.
Not the bulk of it. There could be a lot proposed, but not the, I think bulk of
Because
the
that's our
lots
main
would stay.
concern with the CSM and an
That's true.
extraterritorial zone.
That's
is
true.
Well, I also.
If we show it for future development, we don't want to preclude that with,
Right,
with
right.
bad lot lines.
And I also see the note here that the family is trying to work out some agreement. I would rather say that we can delay it unless they work things out. Seen on page 3 of the minutes which they have
Oh.
proposed, yeah, in the public hearing. I think I would rather be more than happy to delay it just up to March 1st, next meeting, and, well, I don't know, sisters and board, until
Wait, what?
at least March when a private family agreement. So they are in the process of reaching an agreement. I would just say let's not deal with it right now, so.
I think they're also in the process of meeting the conditions of the town.
Yeah, and it's okay. I
Not
think, delaying doesn't really hurt anything here, so.
Oh, she's one
You're
of
the applicant?
applicants, so- But you just have to go up to the microphone.
Come to the mic, please.
I'm Robin Hubbard. I'm the trustee for the trust that owns this property of my father's. And I am trying to understand what needs to be delayed on this.
So let's say if it's, I read here that you're trying to work things out with the family?
We've worked things out. I'm following my father's instructions, and we've been working this out for the last 9 months, and this is where it's at. This is the decision that's been made by my father, and he's the one who owns the land, and I have to represent him.
Or you want to
But
divide the
I think
land?
what the mayor is addressing is in the town board minutes of February 25th. There was a statement to have the board defer the item until March. But it looks as if the
They passed it.
town
Town
passed
did
it
pass
and
Yeah,
did
they-
not defer
They
it.
passed it.
Okay,
All they
that's-
wanted from me was proof that I was the one to make the decisions on this property, and I did bring that to them and satisfy them on that.
So is the yellow line on the drawing the agreed upon access to the sites now?
No, that is not something ever discussed, that my father ever wanted. That is not something that he wanted in that way. The driveway already is where it is
Wait,
to,
wait, wait,
Do
Can
you want
we,
to just put the CSM as it was, as it was submitted?
who drew the yellow line?
Leaf did, that was what he
Leaf.
submitted.
Oh,
with
and then his,
That's what
okay.
he submitted with his letter. So, yeah, we need to,
See a picture of what the town.
So there's
there.
Oh, it's,
currently, what the CSM is you applied for.
This is a
There's an
CSM.
entrance to lot 1 that comes off of Evergreen Road. But the house would be on the new lot 2.
Yeah, well, the existing house is on lot 2 and on lot 4.
And there's gonna be a new house.
there's not,
The existing house,
there's two existing houses on this.
you
Okay,
can
the-
see, not to interrupt, sorry, but you see
Yeah.
that, remember this,
Yes.
this parcel? You can actually see that right here on the CSM. You can see that outline. So the existing driveway that serves that lot is not, that driveway actually does not stay entirely on that lot 1 or as it currently exists. And
actually,
that's why there's an easement.
There's a different CSM also that shows it, I think it shows it providing access to lot 3 too, also. I don't
Right.
know, should be in the,
Right, we had to show how one would access lot 1, 2, and 3 when we were doing this. That was
a
suggested.
lot of pages of the CSM.
so, trying to remember. When we create new
There.
lots with a CSM, are we obligated to ensure that all lots for future development have either access to a public road or a recorded easement?
Right,
Right.
and they would all have access to the street, and the town is, I mean, I guess probably the town is also requesting that they have a joint access easement. But this portion of the CSM shows that proposed easement, and just how, I mean, it goes all the way in the back of lot 2 also. And that's why I kinda like the other one, where it was just going in the front and going right to, between lots 2 and 3. But again, this is how the town approved it.
Well, but
Wait, which is what the town approved? Sorry, Mark.
The town approved it as shown with the proposed easement to serve between lots. well,
Sorry, I'm trying
1,
to
2, and
find it
3.
here.
But across lot
I mean-
1 to serve 2 and 3.
But here's what I'm trying to figure out is, if I were designing this from scratch,
Yeah,
not
just-
knowing the
yeah,
owners, this is
right.
not how I would design it, but if, I'm trying to figure out why it's a big issue for us, if people wanna put easements and divide a lot, as long as the lots conform to the zoning ordinance and there's emergency access and access to a road,
And the fire
Is that-
department has signed off on it, as far as I know, or that should be a
Yes,
condition
yes, they
of
have.
a-
They have signed off on it.
So, but this road is going to number 2, right? This is,
The easement
this
provides
easement,
access
yeah.
across lot 1, for lot 1, 2, and 3. And then 4, I think,
yeah,
has
but
its
that's
own
in the,
driveway.
that's in the middle of lot 1, right? Is this?
It is, it goes, there's an
Yeah.
existing driveway that goes a portion of that.
That's this driveway right here.
so does the easement currently exist?
Yes.
For a
Yes,
portion of the,
Yes.
as shown, and then you would extend it.
yes.
Well,
Because isn't the
You
issue
want-
that whoever inherits lot 1, I mean, I don't wanna get involved in a family issue,
Right.
will inherit a lot with an easement already across it, which inhibits their ability to
Do what they
develop
want to
their
do.
property. So the new lot 2 will have the house.
I think a little
Right.
clarification might be helpful. So the existing lot, let's
I
use
see
the
it.
drawing that's provided here. You see this lot here?
Yeah.
That currently, the house sits on that lot, but this part of the driveway does not sit on that lot currently. And that is where I think the easement exists, is that correct?
Yes.
But does the easement exist on this part of the lot currently?
Up to the corner, because the other road
Up to that
doesn't-
corner?
Next corner, right there, where it turns off to go into the house.
Turn south.
Where there's the road that goes in towards the house. It's that whole, part of that doesn't exist yet.
So what is being newly created with this? What part of the easement is being newly created? I guess that's the question.
Show you, if you guys are interested, I brought some copies.
This is the engineer who
The
designed
engineer,
it.
okay.
Adam Carrico, Carrico Engineering.
Do you have the topos on there or the slopes?
Yes.
You wanna keep one?
We had limitations we had to work within as far as impervious surface,
Yep.
and that's why the road was built, partly why it was built the way that it was built.
Can you say what the town zoning is for this parcel right now? Is it their
It's agriculture.
A1?
So,
Is lot 1 a legal lot from the southern boundary up to the easement?
The current lot 1 or the new lot 1?
The new lot 1,
The new lot 1 is just encompassing the easement, so it's on all.
I know,
Okay,
but
okay.
the easement is effectively cutting it off to from development.
it's cutting it off in the middle.
Right through the middle. So is the southern part of lot 1,
Is steep slopes. There wasn't gonna be much that could be put there.
These are steep slopes.
there's not much room to put something there?
No, there isn't. They have identified for us the 2 possible building sites on that particular lot are identified.
In blue. Yeah. Because even though they're granting a variance for the slopes for the driveway, they're not gonna grant a variance for a house construction on the slope.
Correct. And
Oh,
the-
yeah.
and the steep, and the variance for the steep slopes were as shown on this map. What we worked out in a couple of meetings with the fire department on site is the existing driveway that, is in place right now that serves the existing house as a really, steep, sharp corner to get to it.
Right.
And when we worked out with the fire department, we are gonna make some improvements to that corner, which involves, disturbing just a small little chunk of that 15% slopes. And that's what we asked for with the variance with the town.
I think you're right.
The town has expressed, just verbally, I guess, as you can see from this map, the green shaded area is all the 15% sloped areas. So in order to bring a driveway, a brand-new driveway across there, not only would we potentially be adding more than 20,000 square feet of impervious area, which would kick you into a whole new ballgame of stormwater management requirements, and permitting with Dane County. But also the town isn't interested in having that much, area of steep slopes disturbed, so.
I have a quick question for you, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you're already adding quite a bit if you already only go about 2/3 or 3/4 into lot one. You're adding all of this in the back.
Right.
So how
and
many
I-
square
and I
feet
did
is that?
calculate that between the homes and that, and just the addition of the new driveway, between that, it is less than 20,000 square feet.
So how about if we were to have a driveway for lot number 2, lot number 3, lot number 4, all coming from Evergreen rather than going through lot number 1?
Well, the
The
area
slopes.
Huh?
along, the
The
red area
slopes,
along.
there's a
Evergreen
20% slopes.
is really steep.
And the sight lines, they did not want any more entrances
you-
other than what's there.
You don't want a driveway coming off a 20% slope because of sight lines, safety, and
So that's what the red lines show there, that.
getting in might be easier than getting out.
Outlets.
So this is the existing driveway.
And that's gravel.
It's ice.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Eventually a bit of gravel again, right?
There's no building envelope shown on lot 4. Will that be
Because
a,
there's already a house there.
there's already a house there, okay. And I guess to repeat David's questions, these are legally created lots under the town zoning ordinance?
Yes.
They're probably minimum 2 acres or?
Minimum is 1.5 acres, but one's 4.5 acres, one's
Right,
3 and
right.
one's 3.
Right, yeah.
So how do you access lot number 4? How do you access the house now? Is there a road
It's off of
there?
Evergreen Road, down on the corner of Evergreen
yeah.
Road.
Is that-
It's right here.
I don't
Yeah,
see
you
that
can see
here.
on the,
Maybe we can see it right
there you can see on the screen.
Right there,
It's right here.
getting to it across.
Oh,
That-
okay.
That, the house,
Yeah, I-
the house that you're.
Well, I,
This house is off, the house is right there.
There's a house right there, Mark.
Yeah,
See it?
right, I'm going up.
It's hidden.
here.
And how is
down.
that accessed now?
It's off of this driveway. It's this driveway, that, this is, I was standing close to Evergreen Road here.
Mhm.
And that's about in this location here. And then you can see it on the easement, Mayor. It comes right here. It follows this existing line like this.
That's the
And then-
driveway to lot 2. I think the mayor had asked about lot 4. Somebody asked about.
Right,
lot
that's why I was on lot 4 originally, but then Kurt was directing me
They're
up.
just a little bit too far in west of, though. I think that was the issue.
So with new CSM, that roadway will be gone then, right?
Which map?
That roadway will be eliminated because
CSM, is gonna utilize
That
the
house right
existing
there.
driveway.
part of the
Part of the
existing.
existing driveway all the way, to where it's shown on this printout that I just gave you.
Let's just get this understood. It presently goes to the driveway that goes into lot 2, right?
Yes,
That's the extent of the driveway
yes. Where Evergreen Road up through, it goes into lot 2.
into lot 2. So beyond that, there is a piece in lot
A little piece in lot 1.
lot
yes.
1,
Yes.
and then in lot 2,
Yes.
and then it enters lot 3.
Yes.
Does the county, I didn't have a chance to ask, does the county have to approve it too? The county?
The county, the CSM?
Yeah.
I believe so, yes.
So
So if
And then DOA has to approve it, but
Yeah.
that's,
So just, this might help for context a little bit. This photo is 8 years old, almost 8 years old, and this is now, I'm told, gravel. The reason why the access is here, just for context purposes, let's look at this again. The reason we're looking at this driveway here, this area as you go south is very difficult to traverse because of the topography. So as you go south here, you'll notice here in a moment, it's hard to see, but you can see how it climbs quite a bit. And so that's why, especially now in the winter, it's very obvious that this would be a pretty big impact to get access from Evergreen Road frontage, which is why it's been designed to be using this access point up here.
yeah, but it makes the lot number 1 useless right?
Well, it bisects it, yeah.
Split in the
Building-
middle.
There's two allowable building sites on that lot still with the current design. And with where the yellow line is drawn on there, the town may not approve that because that's gonna be disturbing a lot larger 15% sloped area and removing quite a few trees in order to make grading work in there. You're basically cutting a brand-new driveway on the side of a hill, and just the impact, I guess, in my opinion, it would be more significant doing that. Not only that, but as I mentioned, it may kick us into stormwater management requirements and more county permitting for stormwater and that sort of thing.
So the map showed the yellow line, so where did that come from?
That was something that Leaf submitted with his letter,
Oh,
but the
okay.
town didn't approve it.
I didn't see the letter, so maybe.
Oh, it was in the packet.
You've identified 2 lots in parcel 1, right? In lot 1, potential building sites.
Correct.
Yes.
You couldn't have both, it would just be
Well, I
one.
was going to ask that. That was the question I was going to ask.
Yeah, sorry.
Have one,
Could you have
A1.
both?
No.
And have legal
no,
parcels?
because it's too much impervious surface than with the other house.
That and zoning wouldn't allow us to have 2 residents, I mean, unless it was split further, but that was strictly put on there to just show
Yeah, okay.
potential allowable building areas
Who put that on there?
based on slope. That was myself. I
So-
put that blue
so-
outline on.
But the interpretation of what's allowable, excuse me, David, maybe that, you're the commission member, go ahead.
Oh, go on.
Well, so the determination of what's the allowable building area, it was yours.
Right, and that would essentially is following the setback guidelines and the town of Middleton standards to have everything buildable outside of the 15% sloped areas.
So what is the issue here?
Well, the issue is, I guess, we don't think that the yellow highlighted area is the best solution here. I think the plan that I
No,
handed
you
you.
don't go there.
Okay.
You put a proposal together that
Correct.
says here are 2 building sites, with that road being in place, or that access road being in place. What's the issue? I don't understand the issue.
There is no issue, I guess.
The-
It's here for extraterritorial
Yeah.
CSM approval.
Right.
The issue is in Leaf's letter.
I would say that why city would allow this thing in the middle of a lot. I actually am more inclined to whatever is proposed here, that it at least doesn't spoil the whole lot. So, and this does provide an access to both lot number 2 and lot number 3. That's how I see it, so.
The lot
But the-
belongs to my father at this time, and it's his property, and this is what he would like to do with his property. I represent him, so I'm trying to help him.
Right.
This is his property.
But the mayor's concerned because if by CSM we create a lot that is basically bisected by a road, at some point in time, it'll be someone else's property down the road, and then they're gonna come back wanting some variance or change, so we're trying to think about and I think Leaf's concern, if I recall, is that this road then, well, the lot as it created would be harder to develop
Yep.
because of the road. But the road's already there. The driveway.
The town of Middleton said we needed to have a road there to have access to the 2 building sites for the future.
Right.
And that's sufficient with this driveway, except it would be widened a little bit.
Yes. The driveway we proposed gave access to lot 1, 2, and 3 to the building sites that existed.
Would it be a 2-lane wide driveway, or
No.
just one?
I would say this proposed solution, yellow thing, does look encouraging. I don't know. I know you said that it will disturb some more land, or what is your objection to this proposed thing?
I guess I was just basing my opinion based on how the agenda was written, where it was stated such that the yellow outlined area would be better suited topographically and reduce the amount of trees cut down, and I guess I would respectfully disagree. I think it's gonna disturb a lot more steep sloped areas and
But
essentially be just as many trees there.
The yellow line goes across the contours,
Yeah.
right? So it's going to be
no, it doesn't actually.
No,
It doesn't,
no-
it
It is on the,
No, it actually
goes kind of
follows
along it. It kind of
Look at the
follows it.
contours.
It follows the contour.
Yeah, except for at the beginning a little bit, but then it follows. Imagine this line here.
Either way, there's gonna be a
will go-
lot of cut and fill here.
Yeah,
No, I think it actually makes sense.
Well, so
trying to look at
in
the
terms of,
contours online.
in terms of the process,
Mhm.
you see the contours,
There,
David,
it's across the,
on the screen now?
right.
Mark has the contours on the screen.
And that just is going right along here,
And
right?
spinning
And it
around.
would be actually to, a little bit to the west of where the steep. the
Seems to
steep
me that
slopes
if
are.
you're starting with this design of this property from scratch, the yellow would make more sense. It seems like the motivation on the proposal that's before us is because it's extending existing.
Existing, and so it's less
That's-
disturbance.
That's what we're looking at here, and I guess the issue comes down to what responsibility do we feel in terms of preserving the development potential for Lot 1?
And we got to think long-term, I guess it's,
So in terms of process, we could either vote to approve this with the conditions of the town, vote to deny it, or vote to delay it. The applicant has not submitted this yellow line,
No.
so it'd be pretty hard for us to redraw someone's access easement. I mean, we've done it before, require people to shift an access easement, but, I don't think we're gonna propose that.
well, we
Could we-
could,
I mean, the
Could
town,
we,
the town was aware of this yellow line and did not approve it.
I'm not so sure about that.
They didn't have that.
They didn't have that.
This is the first I've seen this.
I would say send it back to them and let them work it out and then bring it back, so.
The town approved
The-
ours. They had received a different drawing that I saw on the day that meeting was, and they said that they felt it didn't matter to them where the road went, as long as it met the rules and regulations of the road. Our current one did meet that, and it was within the family to decide. Otherwise, if they had discussion on that, but the driveway was fine the way it was, and they approved it.
Point, do you have to go back to the town at all, or is it?
No, we were done
Okay.
with the town.
I'll make a motion to deny subject to improving the long-term developable potential for Lot 1.
Okay, I second it. I can second it, right? Okay.
So when my father owns that property, so you're telling him that he planned to develop his property differently? That is.
No, so
The access.
we never want to interfere with what someone can do on their own property, but when you enter into the public approval for a lot split, we have to ensure kind of that every lot meets zoning, access, fire, but also the potential development of it. So I think what we're saying is, come back with something that preserves
the
more of
development
the
potential.
access, preserves more of the, area for lot one for
Or change.
development. Or change the configuration. Now, the problem is that a lot of the middle of lot one is already 15% slopes.
Oh, you mean the
See,
middle like
another,
here?
another thing has just struck me about it. Not only does the access
That's
road cut
15%
the
slope.
lot in half, but then the access road cuts the lot in half again where the potential building site is. Right?
Yep.
So I wonder if, that road that goes to lot 2 doesn't come to lot 2 to the boundary, go along the boundary and then go down, leaving that whole site developable. Am I making sense?
Yeah, you wanted to take to the end and then turn it, so.
All the way to the end of the parcel? You run into a little bit of slopes.
Yeah, that it does that. That it does that. If anybody can see that, leaving that whole site as a developable site.
Go ahead.
And again, it's never our desire to get involved in a family property issue, but it's driveways and creating viable lots is within our purview, so.
Okay, any other discussion? Otherwise, the motion is,
Is there a motion to deny or to delay?
I made the motion to deny. I'm open to
Okay.
revising it to delay.
Because it can be resubmitted.
Or it could just be, if it was just delayed, if they could just, we could meet with them.
Then let's
Let's
I'll
delay,
modify
because
it to
if we
delay it.
deny, they have to technically file
Yeah.
another application, pay the fee. So delay just means,
Yes, I'll modify that to
Postpone.
delay. And subject, what we'd like to see is a modified proposal that preserves more
Or
of the
the integrity of
viability of Lot 1 be independently developed.
You guys consider viability serving the lots or having more open space?
This is my son-in-law.
well, it's gotta be a trade-off between both.
If we take this back to our surveyor and engineer here and say, preserve the viability, what does that mean? Because the way it's
Well-
drawn up right now, it services, I think, 2 lots, and
It services 3 lots. But the
I'm sorry, 2.
viability is that you're running a driveway right through the middle of a lot.
driveway's not going away, though. It's existing today.
Right.
It might not need to go all the way to lot 2 and 3. A portion of it could be removed in theory.
Right.
And then you don't have as much impervious surface area, which you were mentioning.
I guess I don't understand we would tell our engineer to make it more viable, because the way it's drawn up today is it's designed to service those 2 building spots on Lot 1. And if we move the driveway, it's actually less serviceable,
But there's
along
not
with
gonna,
the steep slopes and the variance for trees and everything.
there's just not gonna be 2 building sites though on lot 1. There's
Nope,
only gonna
be one.
Maybe, there may not be any, but.
Maybe, yeah.
Is this a buildable site on the southeast side of Lot 1? This area?
Southeast side?
Southeast side?
Or do you mean northeast?
No, the southeast.
is- Southeast
The
is
one that's not labeled as a lot, the one where you have in between the 2 slopes.
One where it
Saying
says
right
lot
here.
1.
Like little,
I'm saying right here,
yeah.
Where are you pointing?
right in that area. Is that a buildable lot?
Yeah, that's not showing on this.
These are the two. That
is
not.
Okay, that's not buildable.
No, that's why it's not.
so what are 2 lots there? One over
That's
here
based on
and
their interpretation.
Well, there's a
But that's
potential
based on the
building
setback
site
from
here
the-
or here, but it
yeah.
couldn't be both.
over here, okay.
I think it's looking at it's looking at the balance of things, the fire department, making sure that they can serve it, because that's a concern for all the lots that would be created. Is there a quality of tree difference? I mean, is there anything in the front that's not as good as in the back, or, what is the actual square footage difference? And, I don't know. I'm just saying, I think those are the kind of things that, if they delay it, then we can get
It's
more
just,
information.
the applicant didn't submit the drawing with the yellow line on
No, we
there,
know.
so, it's just confusing that it would be delayed or denied because of that, I guess.
I don't think it is because of that. I think it's the question of, is this the configuration?
So you guys
That-
would rather see it not where the yellow line comes out, but where where it goes to the left, comes down to service the house on Lot 2, you'd rather follow that boundary towards the west, service Lot 3, just to be clear?
I don't know that they're, I don't know that I heard the planning commission stating a preference. Maybe I missed it, but I think what they're just saying is, can we look at the
To be
the
considered.
balance of all the different issues that are on the lot? Because it is adjacent to the city in several different ways. I mean, the whole thing.
I think the concern that I heard is that this lot is almost the entire length of it is divided by an access easement, not all of which exists today. So it's extending an access easement that basically bisects the lot. Whereas a route, something like this, which is an option which is not cutting into the slopes, affects, like Lot 3's access is much less encumbering to Lot 1 and 2.
Right.
If that makes
Yep.
sense. I think that's the crux of the
Yep,
issue.
you put it
summarizes it
well,
well.
so.
I
Yeah.
think, we could talk to the engineer some more, but I think we've already talked to him, and he said, like, the steep slopes and the fact that it runs against the ridge there, and the additional stormwater management makes that yellow line not possible. What might be possible is to have it come down to service Lot 2 and kick along that lot line, but it's not going to be removing the existing driveway at all that bisects Lot 1. That doesn't go away.
Needs to be there in order to service the potential lot in the northwest corner.
Okay, so any more questions? The motion is to delay, so if there's any.
Postpone.
Postpone, yeah.
Yeah, postpone, so.
Have you thought about thinking about
Hmm.
the driveway against the northern boundary of Lot 1?
And then coming down?
I think the condition there is that it would it would take away those buildable lots potentially. And the idea was not to add more impervious surfaces because it would extend it past the 20,000 square footage that puts you in the stormwater management plan. So by adding on to the existing driveway, you circumvent that and you still allow buildable envelopes on Lot 1.
Plus, it's my responsibility to preserve trust funds and not spend it on extra driveway construction if at all possible. I'm supposed to be responsible with trust money.
What's the 20,000? That's if, in total on the development parcel, if it exceeds 20,000 square feet of new impervious, on each parcel or on a total development site?
Just total development.
And that would require you to,
Technically, there'd be some redevelopment in here if this driveway's going away.
Oh, that must be a county town rule.
When
and
I
do they
did the
count
initial-
gravel as impervious?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, any other questions or concerns? The motion is to delay, so I call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Did we have a
Aye.
second yet?
Yeah, I
Yes.
second it.
Yes.
yeah.
That's right, okay.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
No, we meet the second and fourth Tuesdays, so it could be at the next one.
Okay, so we are on to item number 4.
Okay, the architect's here. I have, when we get to the TIF things, I just have a couple things to talk about for the concept review for the actual Conservancy Bend. Just a couple things. One is, I kinda like the Bend part of the name, but Conservancy is used quite a bit in the city, so I don't know, I think that's just your working title, but we might wanna find something else. And then I also put, in the staff comments, they do show stormwater, at a particular location, but that location isn't controlled by the city, so they're looking at alternatives. I just wanted to get those. over
Okay,
to
so
you.
we are on item number 4, the concept review of Conservancy Bend Residences LLC, Parmenter, Clark Street, 2413 and 2421 Parmenter Street, and set a public hearing. Okay, so you want to start, well, you already did start.
Yeah,
so where do you-
well, it's a 84-unit apartment building, 19 condominium, or 19, sorry,
Townhouses.
not condominiums.
Zero lot line
Townhomes,
townhouses.
Zero lot line townhome, sorry about that.
Mhm.
And, it was the proposal, the response that was selected by the council. And, they're here tonight. Concept, they're going to be submitting, the information for a general implementation plan, a rezoning for this. They haven't submitted it yet. And when they do, we're asking you tonight to direct staff to set the hearing for whatever date works in terms of the notice requirements, so that, they could keep going, because I think they would like to try to get it, start construction in the fall, so. That's,
Okay, so you guys want to present it?
We've seen this before.
Have you?
Bunch of times.
Thank you. I want to introduce our architect, Joe Lee, who's also here, so can answer your questions. So overall, I'm going to give you a quick summary. We're looking, this is a concept approval only. John's going to write down any ideas or concerns you have that we can incorporate those into the GIP and the SIP. The GIP public hearing date that we're looking at targeting is March 26th, and then we'll come back for the GIP and then later for the SIP. And this is based on the awarded RFP, so we've made very few modifications at all. We're looking at TIF at about a little under $7.5 million, density of 84 multifamily units, 19 townhomes, 43% or 43 multifamily units, by the way, will be under the WIDA 80% rental rule. 6 of the townhomes will be workforce housing under the WIDA rules. And we're paying the city $2.63 million for the land. The multifamily building is a 4-story building. The townhomes are 3-story buildings, the first floor being garage on the townhomes. The architecture we'll come back to with at the SIP level, but you've seen generally some ideas on that. It's traditional architecture, mostly brick facing the public streets. There'll be some hardy plank and composite panel. We've got a small pool, landscape courtyard. The owners of the townhome easement will have an easement to be able to use the pool and that courtyard area, the fire pit, and the amenities outside there. If we look at the site plan, you can see that we've designed this so that the townhomes can have their own individual lots based on an easement that connects to the public street. That's important so we can avoid the condominium platting and condominium rules for financing. This will keep the units more affordable because they can get traditional financing. If you go to the next slide.
What do you want me?
Yeah, let's go to go to the next one, and then the next one right there. So you can see how we're planning on platting the lot lines. The center parking row there will technically be owned by the LLC that owns the multifamily. So there will be 2 lots. We've got 1 lot for the multifamily, and then we've got a lot for the townhomes, but the lot for the townhomes is split into 19 lots. The center parking row will be on the lot that belongs to the multifamily, so it counts for the parking. There'll be cross-access easements, so everybody can use the drive aisles and parking. There was one concern that was brought up about the driveway entrance on the building A1. If we go back to the colored site plan. Yeah, right there. You can see, Mark, the driveway entrance to A1 here on my plan. If you use your arrow, we can propose to remove that when we get to the SIP level or the SIP level. We could remove that driveway or ramp to the garage. And then, Mark, if you could show them here, we would propose to move this one further south on the Clark Street side. So take it a little further south so it lines up with the aisle in the garage. Yes.
It's a no access off of Parmenter?
So no access to the garage off of Parmenter. We'd still leave the driveway
Okay.
for fire
Driveway
trucks, et cetera.
Driveway would be about here with the arrow.
No, that'd be where the ramp would be. We'd move the ramp
Yeah,
off
yeah.
Clark Street further south, and then the ramp to the garage off Parmenter would be eliminated. Okay? So I've got that. I'll just pass this around.
So the driveway on the Parmenter will be eliminated on the multiple.
The ramp to
ramp.
the
The ramp.
garage will be eliminated, right? The driveway will remain to the surface lot for fire truck access and other access. That's a right-in, right-out only on that driveway, by the way.
And how wide is the driveway? Notice something in the fire.
More than 20 feet, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And I mean, that's an SIP level, concern that we would address, and all those dimensions will be provided at that level. The detention pond is on land that looks like it's owned by the state DOT, and we're in discussion, our engineers in discussions with the DOT about that, potentially either getting an easement from them or purchasing the land. To them, it's surplus property, you know, and they do have a policy of selling and disposing of surplus property. So we'll pursue that first, and we could potentially even provide them, you know, some benefit from stormwater from that roundabout. Tends to pond there right now.
Where does the stormwater from the existing development on the site go? Is there a detention basin, or is it just?
No, there's none.
It's probably,
It's from the 70s.
yeah, well, it's probably older than
I
that.
mean,
Yeah,
it goes in the
60s.
creek.
Or at least
but
Yeah,
one of the
it
buildings.
Yeah,
goes
just
right in the creek with nothing.
yes,
Yeah.
right, yeah, just drains in the creek area.
You're zooming around so fast, you give me.
I know, it makes me kind of dizzy.
Yeah, there's no stormwater facilities existing,
Right,
and I see.
right.
Isn't,
So our intent, by the way, also this says phase 1, phase 2, that was left over, so we're intending to develop this all as one phase. We'll start construction this fall for the multifamily and for building T1, the townhome T1. We'll put a model together and furnish it in that building. Then depending on, we're intending to do some pre-sales this summer on that, and then we'll do some pre-sales on T2 and T3. Now the townhomes only take about 6 months to build, see, but A1's going to take about 15 months to build. So we'll build T1 as a model, you know, and have some, you know, selling showroom in there, and then that would start in the fall, open in the spring of 2020. And then we could either build T2, T3, depending on pre-sales this fall for opening in spring, or we could start those in the spring for opening in the fall of 2020. Keeping in mind that A1 won't be done until February 2021. So T1, T2, T3 will all be built while A1's under construction, but we'll start with T1 and then move on to T2 and T3 after that.
Terrence, is there a covered parking for those townhomes? Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, so the, you can see that there's a doubled parking space in front of the townhome.
Right.
So each of the market rate units has a 2-car garage, drive straight in at grade. And each of the workforce housing unit has a single-car garage, drive in at grade.
I see.
And I've actually built something similar to this in Fish Creek. So you know, you drive in at grade to your garage, you got a little mud room sort of thing, and basically your second floor is your living room, kitchen, powder room.
There's no basement.
Right, there's no
No
basement.
excavation, because there's
Right.
some soil issues.
Right, right.
Gotcha.
And then the third floor is your bedrooms and some, again, bathrooms and such. Right.
You don't want basements that close to the creek anyway.
Well, that's what we were thinking.
And will there be,
Huh?
are they elevator accessible or?
So we are building, what we did in the townhomes that built up north, we actually put the elevators in. Here, what we're thinking of doing is having an optional, so we'll have a closet on every floor at the same location so that you can build and put in a personal elevator. And that can be done either, you know, if somebody signs a contract to pre-purchase, we can build that during construction, or, you know, 20 years from now, somebody could come in and put in an elevator that distant into the future.
I think that's
Terrence-
good thing to plan for the future, so that
Yeah.
would be great.
Yeah. So in terms of amenities, in looking at the site plan, I see club room, a mail area, the pool, a fire pit. Other amenities that are provided on site?
What we're thinking about doing, normally we would include like a small fitness center for a building this size, but since it's so close to Middleton Center, we're thinking not doing that, instead providing them with some memberships to the fitness center that Peter Krause is opening up, and that's what we're doing in Middleton Center. So the fitness center is about 4,000 square feet. It's quite large. In Middleton Center, a guy named Peter Krause is going to run it, operate it, own it. And then we provide our tenants with an annual membership to that fitness center.
Is the pool a real plus, Terrence, or not?
I think it's, you know, it's sometimes it's like a fitness center too. It's great for marketing, great for leasing and sales, you know, but probably, you know, a small percentage of people actually use it compared to those who think they're going to use it when they move in, you know.
Dan pointed out it's in shade for much of its life by the looks of it.
Yes, that is true.
So
Yeah.
I would raise questions as to
Yeah.
whether you need a pool.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
The
don't-
other one, I've
we could skip that. I mean, I'm not,
spoken, I think I've spoken to you this before. The Parmenter Street Public Art. I wonder whether you couldn't instead make a contribution to the public art in the middle of the circle, rather
yeah.
than having another public art project, you know, that's.
That's a great idea. I'd be very open to that. I think that makes a lot of sense, you know, rather than having competing art. Let's get that one done, you know.
Exactly.
I'm very in favor of that.
How many, 84 units in the multifamily? How many parking stalls are you providing?
So there's a
Underneath?
chart there, Mark, that you could
I'm
go
trying to remember.
And Joe, do you want to
You got the microphone.
come on up here?
You got to speak
Come on,
so
come
he
up
can
here.
record, yeah.
So 96.
Yeah, that's still a little bit in flux as we're, right, as we're designing the building. The target, right now it's shown as 1.1 per unit. The target would be to get as much of that as we can. It might drop a little bit.
Did that include the spaces in front of it?
That did not include the spaces in front of the townhomes.
Any lifts? No, just kidding.
Say that again? No lifts.
Just in the townhomes, elevators.
So we didn't include, we'll have to include those in front of the town.
Yep.
That's down here.
More questions for Terrence?
So the lot line on the north end of the building is right where this dash line
Up.
exists, correct?
The,
Yeah.
so what did you put in front of here?
And are there any setback requirements from a city planning perspective on any components
They
of?
would be establishing the setback requirements when they submit their GIP, and then we would look at that and see if they're.
Okay,
Those, sorry, the townhouses in T2, those are gonna have, like walkout patios?
Yes, so in the back, Mark, if you go to this page, further down,
Keep going.
keep going, you'll see it.
In there.
Oops.
Is it past that?
Yeah, you go back.
Oh.
Go back. And we'll keep going. All right, keep going. One more page or up there. Right, keep going a little bit more.
Up,
Yeah. So you can see
Yeah, there's patio.
there's patios out here right up to the property line. We're trying to make those fairly good sized patios. You know,
those would be
'cause,
nice.
yeah, and we have a nice balcony too on the second floor too, so that's super nice, and some real nice glass on that side of the building, so that's more glass than you'd normally see.
Remind me in your,
We have a
TIF
picture of
application,
that,
how much
actually.
did you say those units would sell for?
So we're looking at we want to stay under 450 to 500,000 for the market rate units, 365 for the workforce housing, I think it was, and we still got to get our costs and everything bid out and everything.
Great site,
So
correct?
we'll see.
Great site.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
Yeah, these will be very
I'll
popular.
buy a unit overlooking the Conservancy.
Yeah.
I thought
Maybe,
that's
maybe
what,
not at 450, but
I thought that's what you were thinking.
We'll charge you $550.
Oh,
well, one thing I comment on that, I think this is one, location in the city where there's potential to still have the public interface with the Conservancy and the units, the townhome units on that end of the property, the way it's configured really sort of prevents any public interface with that part of the Conservancy from, it's private space. The perception will be, it is going to be owned by the potential owners, so.
Well, if you
It's one issue or concern I have about the site plan that, it's sort of separating very deliberately the community space from the Conservancy. And I'd like to see some sensitivity paid to that a little bit more, and in some inclusiveness and,
So one of the couple challenges, one is we obviously we can't touch the Conservancy, we can't touch the trees there, and remember that this area, Mark, if you can kind of show them this area here,
Go to the DCI map, yeah.
is very steeply sloped. You know, when you come off that cul-de-sac, it goes straight down, you know. And if you ride your bike down this ramp, you know, into the conservatory, that's steep. That's going down fast. So those slopes shouldn't really be, you know, you're not going to want anything us to mess with that, you know. You know, we also deliberately, like, we didn't run a sidewalk off Clark Street to the patios because I don't think the owners of the patios are going to want, you know, people just sort of wandering off the street along the back of their townhomes, you know. I think there's a security and a privacy issue there, you know. Now, we will improve, we'll put in the new sidewalk along Clark Street, you know, which will be nice. Then you've got the bike path already there. So I'm not sure, you know. Oh, there you go.
You know, unfortunately, I think when the decision was made that it had to be 2.63 million, really targeting for higher end up market rate without a lot of public access. Is there public access to the Conservancy on this
Yes,
cul-de-sac?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a
It needs
dirt
to
and
be
steps.
Probably enhanced and not many people know it's
Yeah,
there.
yeah. And we could,
High school kids sure do.
High school kids do.
yeah, exactly. You know what they're doing.
They're exploring the scenic
Nature.
fauna, yes.
The fun. But we could help, you know, we could help improve or, you know, provide some kind of donation towards the, I mean, I use that access, so, I mean, it'd be great to have that improved. It's really just
That's a good idea.
Yeah, I
some
mean,
dirt and some wood right now.
All necessary there?
That's one of the things that we would be,
Yeah, you could
yeah,
get
make
rid
it
of
almost
that.
like a parking lot or trailhead. I
Yeah.
can't say trailhead, I guess.
Or
but-
take it out. I mean, right now, ironically, you can't, there's like a weird no parking there, Mark, right? It's, they don't want the students parking there. So it's kind of odd because they make it impossible for the students to park there, which then makes it impossible for the public to park there to walk your dog or to go enjoy the Conservancy.
Yeah.
So it's kind of, you know, you're keeping the students out, but you're keeping the public out also. So you might want to think about that. But you could take out that, if you wanted, you could take out that whole bulb, and that would give you a lot of opportunities to do something nicer, you know what I mean?
There's the trails and
Yeah, trails or maybe a small parking lot or something that's,
Give you a lot of chance to
not on his property. Not on his property. So.
However nice it is to do ellipses in AutoCAD or whatever graphic you're doing for this drawing, the pond is a perfect ellipse, right? I wonder if the edge of that couldn't shape along the lines that Jan is talking about to sort of, you know, integrate more with that path that's around there.
can you
So-
bring up the original, the aerial site plan?
Yeah, I wish I could point to it on here, but.
This?
Yeah, come down to the bottom of it. There you go. Keep going down to sort of integrate it into that whole space and the walk pathway through there,
That could be the pool.
rather than it being this perfect.
Kind of a kidney bean swoop that even cuts a little bit into, but there's a slope there.
Just so that it integrates more.
It's right here.
That it really integrates with the development, not that it's sort of oh my God, we've got to have a pond.
So that's, Mark.
There's a low area here now, actually.
Yeah, I understand that, right.
What do you want?
So
But
is
we're
that-
talking marginally.
It's in here.
Yeah, which is similar to,
Yeah, okay. So what are you thinking, just like shaping the pond?
Yeah, shaping the pond
kind of a
to,
kidney bean type of shape.
Yeah, okay, right, oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's just.
just to make the connection.
That's just conceptual. We have to engineer
Right,
it.
exactly, yeah.
That in the,
Yeah.
don't know how big
and
it
that
has
little
to
dirt
be yet.
path will go away, right?
Shortcut for people.
Will there be a path from the Conservancy? So there's an existing path. Where's the existing path? Near Parmenter. There's, you don't.
There's a path here.
I thought it's more to the right, to the,
Actually, I don't think so.
Okay, yeah.
No, because it's right over here.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yes, I see.
I mean, that's also
Yeah, I think that was.
to Jennifer's concern about kind of maximizing the interface with the street and the Conservancy.
Correct, yep. And just, you know, the sensitivity to the natural setting and things like that.
It's important.
I think it'll add value to the property. Kind of maximizing the interface with the conservancy.
Like how to do that, or what does that mean?
One question for the city in terms of the, maybe the concept we see here, is there anything that, certain things that we approved today that would preclude us from later approving a live-work situation in one of these townhomes?
One of the things that perhaps they could put in their GIP is just the whole, I mean, they could say R1 rules apply for like home occupations, where somebody is working out of their home, they're living there as the primary. Is that what you're talking about, or are you actually talking about a separated,
Nope.
this is my unit, this is my
Yeah.
business, and then I live above? We do have a home occupations, and if they put them in the GIP, that would be,
Okay,
desirable.
and then the second thing where you said if there'd be a separate space for working, that would be a different situation?
no, you can, as a home occupation, you can have a separate space within your unit. You'd, you know, a room or a couple of rooms. It's just that living there has to be your primary
Okay,
use, and you can't alter the character of
So
the,
there's a room in front there,
from the outside primarily, or probably.
in front here, along here.
where is the front door to the townhomes?
So there's actually two doors. You'll be able to come in from, some of them have a door, a pedestrian door by the garage, some do not. You have to come, so those will come in through the garage. And then, like T1, T2, you have doors that are towards the street, the public streets, right? I'm sorry, that was T1 and T3, I'm sorry, yeah. T2, you'll be entering through the garage or through a pedestrian door, depending on the unit. But in terms of live work units, we had proposed live work, if you recall, and so that was not like accepted by the council as one of the options, but we have planned, or Joe has planned you said about a 12-foot room. 12-foot room on T1, it'd be on the left side. So, you know, we could, in the GIP, incorporate the allowance for the zoning to allow for live work in that, you know, having that room be a commercial space if you wanted. So we can accommodate that in the zoning if you allow it. And then if somebody wants to use that room, because there'll be a door there, as a gallery or insurance agent, you know, their office or realtor's office, they could do that.
Last time we saw this,
general-
Terence, you
Yeah.
tantalized us with extending the building to Lee Street.
To where?
Have you
Oh, yeah.
thought more, or did you follow that through at all?
Yes, I did. I talked to the building owners on the left. People on the right wouldn't respond. So people on the left, we actually had a long conversation with them and their attorney, downtown Madison. And they're, you know, they made it very clear they're not ready, you know, for a long time. They still want to operate the business for a long time. The children are starting to get involved in it, and, you know, next generation. So it could be 30 or 40 years before they are ready to sell. So yeah, they decide, you know, they don't want to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Ask the city also a question about the right to the east of the parcel there where the community school is. I know the school district is planning some expansion. Do any of those components of those plans sit on this parking lot to the south of the community school that you know of that we should be thinking about?
I think what they are doing is essentially repurposing that building for the K4.
Okay.
That's their plan.
And the parking lot would stay.
But
Parking lot would
I think
stay
what
as
Jen-
far as we know.
what you're asking is as the high school expands here, is this lot gonna be affected? There's gonna have to be a need to bring the access around the school.
Yeah, 'cause
I
a
don't
lot
know
of this is gonna
exactly
be
how
parking
that's
lot.
configured at this point. I'm not sure if they have
I don't think they have the final plans.
I
yet.
don't think they do either. But the high school's expanding here in this area, and so the driveway will, it somehow has to be bending around the north side of the school.
It would be nice to have some of that, some of those concepts to understand the flow of the traffic and things.
But the intersection here will remain, I mean, that, the traffic will still continue to, you know, this isn't gonna change. Lee Street is gonna be where it is. Going past Clark Street the change wouldn't happen until east of Clark Street.
Okay, thanks, Mark.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is a good question, though.
I think that is, and
Yeah.
it also brings up the idea of the TIA, we really haven't talked about that, a traffic impact analysis. Typically, a rezoning would require that. I haven't really talked to our engineering yet, if this, you know, size of this triggers that. It likely might be a minor one, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'd like to avoid doing that because the office buildings will technically generate more traffic in opposite direction of the residential. So it's like 3 to 1 almost.
I'll just,
But yeah, let us know if you want to do that, but the residential traffic will be opposite
Yeah.
the office traffic and,
I mean, there's a
Yeah.
substantial use there now.
yeah.
Okay.
Our biggest concern is
But-
getting the demo done, you know, like doing the demo in September hopefully so we could break on October. So if we can get the tenants out before then, you know.
Kurt,
This is a wild and crazy idea, and Jen initially suggested it. But like, what about a rooftop restaurant bar on A1?
So we'd need to have some agreement with the school district for parking in that lot. I mean, great, but
Oh, yeah.
we'd need to have parking for that. I mean, that'd be great, but we gotta have parking somehow.
Maybe
I
that
mean,
could
and
be
we're
worked
really
out.
not
No.
thinking of going 5 stories with 1 story of commercial on the bottom. Right, 'cause
No, 'cause
5
you need
stories would
parking.
Raise the,
It also raises the costs significantly,
I mean,
because we gotta go podium
That
deck.
could be a garden space, or could
Oh,
be,
yeah.
you know, there could be some use for that ties into the development as well, so.
although you're showing.
I don't know how we'd get a deal with the school district, given what I just heard, which I wasn't aware of, that they're gonna be doing a complete redevelopment there. I don't know how we get a deal for parking if they're gonna, you know, be working on the redevelopment.
And then going back to the site plan, I don't know if it's possible, but even some minor
Oh, site plan, I'm sorry. Is this gonna work?
commercial, yeah, along Clark Street on the first floor, if there's any capacity for like sandwich shops, small restaurants.
So, yeah, we looked at that whole thing through the RP with the city, and that's why I think the live-work units, you can do the, 5 there, because I think those live-work units are low parking need. You know, it's like a insurance agent or realtor, one-person shop, right? So very low parking needs. If we commercial in here, number one, it wouldn't survive without street parking, and there's no street parking in that section. And
On Clark Street?
plus, yeah, on Parmenter, we couldn't do it on Parmenter because there's no parking there.
On Clark
And
Street side?
Clark Street is just, there's zero traffic. The stores would never survive. I mean, we gotta have traffic of at least 12, 15,000, 20,000 cars per day, It just wouldn't survive.
All the students coming by?
Plus the parking. Well, that's the thing. I mean, the logical thing, unfortunately, would be, would be things that are oriented towards the students, which you may not want, It'd be, your sub shop, your
that
whatever,
would
tattoo
also
shop,
That would make it,
Weed shop once we legalize?
yeah, the MJ store. The MJ store.
Don't quote me on that.
No,
Interesting three-dimensional images.
yeah, I mean, is there any feedback on that? Well, because we can make changes going forward.
It looks good like this. I guess the question is, how do you transfer this to reality? But it looks good.
Yeah, we're refining the design right now. The character that we're working on is very substantially similar to this. I think the apartment building's gonna change a little bit more. We're gonna have more of an articulated base to it and a little more variety in materials. We're not gonna go wild with that. We like simplicity, but the townhome, the character is gonna be substantially the same as what you're seeing there. Yeah, there'll be some the balconies will be larger on the Conservancy side at least.
And right now, you can see the Conservancy side here, but you know, in reality, the trees are all there and blocking.
Right,
You
yeah.
won't see that from the street.
Yeah, we're not professing that the landscape there is 100% accurate to what's there. This is just to show, you know, more of the forms and the massing and the character of the architecture than
I kind of wondered
reality
that.
in the landscape.
Interrupt. I guess I was curious if you're on the Pheasant Branch Trail and you look up, would you be able to see the townhomes, the roof line, any of that, like in the wintertime? Is it close enough to? I know the slope is there, so and there's
Wintertime maybe, like through the trees and the branches, yeah.
There's a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of trees there, even if without
Right.
foliage on it. I don't know how much, you'd probably see something, but.
or back.
The-
How many feet is
building-
it from the trail?
The building is approximately occupying this space, but
That's
going,
Far.
Yeah.
But it's tall.
At
It's
least 60
three-story.
feet of slope?
Just
I mean, slope plan?
not height.
No, not 60 feet
vertical,
differential, but
different
60 feet
distance.
linear
Distance.
of distance at least.
Well, how big is that cul-de-sac? Is that a 100-foot diameter cul-de-sac?
Very big diameter cul-de-sac.
That cul-de-sac's probably 100, and you got another 100, that's probably 200 feet or more. Oh, there you go.
189 feet.
3 times what you thought.
Huh?
Well, that's a
3 times
long
what you
distance.
thought.
Yeah.
With these roof, this pitched roof concept as you're showing here, is there gonna be opportunities for solar?
I was just
So,
asking.
We do, John's our solar guy. So we do solar on all of our buildings that we can, and we prefer to have on A1, we prefer to have, I mean, in theory, not an A1, but in theory, the best thing is a flat roof, so we could put the solar panels on these, John, what do you call them, they're ballasted, and they're not attached to the real estate. It has to do with the financing of them. So they're sitting on ballast, on a framework ballasted to the roof, but they're not physically attached. So a flat roof is best for the apartment buildings, but this will be a pitched roof. So, but we're looking at doing, I can answer better when I know I'm putting solar panels on my pitched roof of my new house at Bishops Bay. So I'll be able to answer you better in a few weeks when we know more about that. Be able to put maybe panels on the pitched roofs.
That's something we would all look very favorable to.
Oh, sure, yeah. We'd love to do that on A1 for sure,
On the apartment?
on the apartment building, and if we
This
could do it in the
shows apartment
townhomes, we
building as-
could.
As flat roof.
Um,
Isn't that box, or is that box the next? Oh, that's the
No,
apartment
it
building.
doesn't say flat roof.
That's the school.
That's the
okay.
school.
Oh, okay.
Apartment building right there is pitched roof. But I'm not sure it's pitched all the way through, right? Is it flat in the center or something?
Almost looks like you have a flat
be.
center.
I mean, we could,
There's,
but they have, the panels now are so thin, you know, the wafer thin, that we should, you know, we're planning on putting them on the pitch of my roof of my house, so we'll let you know more.
tour?
Oh, yeah,
tour.
once we can show you Tribeca, right? With the We could set up a tour or photographs. Yeah, right.
There's not
It's done
currently a
in
TIF
May.
request for solar. It's not in the,
Well, it's just total.
Well,
but
they
yeah.
got 100%, so
Yeah.
I don't know what more you
there's not much
request.
more room.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
But we'd
more
still-
input.
But an individual
We'd still look at
homeowner
it.
on the townhome could put on their own solar.
Yes, but if we can, you know, once we know more on this, we could offer that as an optional, you know, because, you know, here's for a few extra bucks you can do this. This is what you'll save. You know, here's a federal grant. Here's a Focus on Energy grant. You know, or I mean, a federal tax credit. Here's a Focus on Energy grant. You know, we can lay that out for them. We've got all that down. I mean, we used to teach Focus on Energy how to do this stuff. So.
Any other comments or more input? So, now what do you want?
I guess just a comment, I sent staff some calculations, and I could send them to you that, I mean, this is not a reason to be for or against, but these are not really at 80% of AMI. My calculations are they're closer to 120% AMI, so I just think we'd avoid using the term workforce units, because they don't really qualify. And in some ways, that is the decision we got from council, was if you want full price for the land, you're gonna get market rate development. And it's actually an appropriate place for market rate development, given the location and the contribution to the tax base. I think it looks nice.
Okay,
And I just wanted to ask you a quick question, Terrence, you said something about March 26th, is that when you're thinking you'll submit the GIP, is that what you're thinking?
We're thinking about submitting March 19th, hopefully targeting the hearing date of March
we couldn't do that, yeah, because we have to we have to actually have it in the paper, you have to put a sign on, so if
2
you
weeks, because it's class 2.
Right, if you submit it on the 19th, if the plan commission tonight says, well, we'll direct staff, it's still probably gonna be April 23rd before we can, because we have to have it in the paper twice, and you have to have it on the sign on the property for a certain number of days, so. But we would do it, I mean, that's why I asked the plan commission if they would just direct staff to set it when you have it, so that we could do it, as quickly as possible.
Okay, so we need a motion for public hearing, and then we need a concept approval?
I would move to direct staff, or to authorize staff to issue the class 2 notice for a public hearing on the rezoning as soon as the GIP has been submitted.
Okay, okay. Any more questions on, or comments on this one? All those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes unanimously.
And then
What
I
else
think,
now?
I think we need do we want a motion of concept approval of the site plan? So I would move concept approval of the site plan in terms of the building configuration, uses, overall feel of the site, but
Building uses and massing.
building uses and massing, there you go.
Okay,
That sounds good.
okay, need a second?
David.
All right. Any questions or comments on that? Okay, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes.
And then I do have an update on, I didn't have a chance to talk to Aaron and his team about it, but we did, we were reviewing the TIF request, and we've had some good discussions about it. But Bill Burns, our finance, is it all right if I go to the next one, by the way? I'm sorry. I
Pardon?
was moving along to the TIF one.
No, that's fine,
Okay.
so,
Bill Burns had a chance to talk with our new assessor, and in looking at that, they're feeling like the projection is more around $22.3 million. And this is developer financed, but they would be asking for 100% of the increment that's generated with a cap rate of 6.25, and again, a value somewhere between 21 and 22, or just over 22. We'd be looking at $6.45 million in projected increment over the life of the TIF. And so I guess the question tonight is just concept approval of the idea that for the redevelopment of this blighted site, they would be asking for developer financed for the amount of increment
100%,
that's 100% of the increment that's generated, and we're estimating that that is about 6.45 million.
100% of the increment through 2030, can you
Yeah.
scroll down?
36.
2036?
I think it's 2036.
yeah, this is
It's
definitely,
through the life of the TID or through the life of the expenditure period?
Life of the, well, it's tax year,
2034.
2035, actually, collection in 2036.
oh,
So I'm sorry, go ahead.
yeah. We are on item number 5, which is a concept review for request for tax incremental financing District 5, assistance for the Conservancy Bend LLC, Parmenter and Clark Street properties, 2413 and 2421 Parmenter Street.
And this
So
is
that's what we are
indicating that
discussing, so.
This is indicating that they would get started in 2019, but they really wouldn't be taxable stuff until 2020 would have a very minor amount of value,
Yeah.
incremental value, and so some increment would be collected in 2021, about $30,000. And then it would go through collection of 2036, and that would be, at this rate, about 6.4 million. So, I mean, I feel like I'm leaving something out, but.
So if the building A1 is, you said, Terrence, won't come online until February, March 2021, then none of that's gonna be generating increment until the tax bills go out in December of 2021. So the total increment may not really hit until 2022. I mean, I'm fine conceptually with what we've said of 100% of the increment through the life of the TID. But I think the assumption of the mill rate staying the same is unlikely. And the value may not hit in the first couple of years, so the total increment may not be 6.4, it may be closer to 6. Or the value might be higher, because your assumption of the value at growing 1% is pretty conservative. Right. No, but the mill rate's been going down, given the,
Down.
given the expenditure caps for schools and the levy cap for cities, which may not change in the next couple of years, given our split government. The mill rate may go down. But the values may go up more than 1%, so it's pretty hard to. The difficulty of saying 100% of the increment is if it generates more increment, does that mean he gets the increment, or is it up to a certain dollar value?
And I think that's a good question. I think
That'd be
normally
nice to
we
know.
would say up to a certain value. We'd say up to
Right.
this amount. And so that's something I think that, we have to wrestle with. So,
I mean, if it generates more increment each year, we pay down our
You'd
loan
pay off
faster.
the loan faster.
Yeah, and you could
and
just
then it
say,
would cap it still.
and yeah, it'd still be capped by default of the loan. You just pay it off faster, and that means the city has their increment, their bonus faster.
Yeah.
Right? So,
100% of it until it.
yeah.
it-
I mean, I'll take that 1% inflation. I'll quote that the assessor.
Yeah, if they don't raise it above that, right?
Right, exactly. Right.
No, I mean, commercial property and those townhomes are 2, 3, 4% a year.
I mean,
Likely.
I could see these
Recent time.
townhomes increasing in value a lot more than 1% a year. I mean,
Yeah.
I could see them going up quite quickly. But we can't project that. But I think you'll find that we'll generate more increment. I think it would be smart to just say, 100% of what the increment is per year, and then we'll just pay our loan off faster, and then the rest is for the city.
Capped it, yeah.
Yeah, it's capped at
But
the loan
that's
amount.
where we'd
So
have to have,
we're not
or I
getting
mean,
any more
council would
after
have to
that.
have the specific numbers of what you're capping that at.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And
Because,
you have a cap, because that determines the loan amount that we're going to get from the bank.
And
So.
you'd be fine with our assumption of the 6.45 or?
Well, we were assuming, what were we assuming?
6.25
Jim?
of a cap rate,
Oh, yeah, that cap rate. I was thinking of the
6.4 million, yeah.
I would wanna speak with Bill and the assessor to see where he lowered the value to come to the 6.4. If it was on the townhomes or if it was on the multifamily, and also recognize that in our multifamily valuation, 43 of the 84 units are at or below 80% WIDA median income. And, the
I don't think so.
rental,
because
the rental levels are. So.
Well, they're not rent restricted,
Right.
Right, and
so
then
they're gonna
also,
appraise at full value.
likewise, the townhomes, the six townhomes, those are set at 365,000, which is lower than what we could likely get for them.
What we should do is, I think we should do what you said, talk to Bill and understand the numbers. And then, like the 1% inflation, what we should model, like, okay, what is it 2% or what is 3%? Because those are reasonable numbers. I mean, assessor values
From what I've
are
seen in
going
the
up
email,
more.
Change in the value was using a higher cap rate.
Yeah, it's.
Because even
from
though
5
market cap rates now are sub 5, I don't think long-term we want to use a 5.5% cap rate.
No, right.
I think we have to use at least a 6, just always.
Yeah, that's fine.
But
Yeah.
I think.
But I would model a 1% or 2% increase. I mean, we're seeing assessments go up significantly more than that in the last
And we just
5
wanted to
years.
keep it here tonight to keep it together with the concept.
Yeah.
So, if you wanted it to come back too, I'm sure it could come back in in 2 weeks with, more information. Because we just are trying to keep it going.
Right. Yes, and it would be nice to just say,
Hard to get it to us and.
you could just say, concept approval of, well, what was Bill Burns's letter? What was that letter saying?
At,
John, what was?
The concept approval is 100% of the increment up to some number until it's paid off.
I don't know what letter you're referring to.
and it was 6.45 million.
Wasn't it, what was our number, 7 point?
Yours is 7 point something.
7.4, yeah, it's $1 million difference.
There was a letter I had up there from Bill Burns that you had up there.
Right, and
Oh.
they have a copy of that.
Yeah.
That's all.
Oh, okay, that's the Bill Burns letter with your signature, you mean?
I thought.
No, that's the letter that they submitted.
So 7, okay, so 7, call it 7.5, so 7, so you could do something like, in concept, we approve TIF, somewhere between, 6.45 and 7.5 million, because we still got to come back for that later anyway, but you're just approving the concept and 100% of increment per year up to the cap, and then we'll just pay it off sooner based on the assessed values, And then we're going to come back, you're going to approve the whole TIF in detail. But let's get some detailed help from Bill Burns, you know.
Yeah, I did have other questions, it's just,
Okay.
your site plan shows some of the studios being 450 square feet, but in your pro forma, you have them at 500 square feet. I know it's just at a concept level, but
Yeah.
I'm gonna pick into that.
Yeah, our ideal studio typically is, we have a certain floor plan that we like, and that's typically 500, but it depends on what you
No, I like the
look at it and see what,
the unit mix.
you know, see.
I mean, I haven't cleared this with the workforce housing committee, but just, I mean, this is a nice unit mix.
Yeah.
You got studios, you got some two plus.
Right.
So
The
that's-
studios will rent very fast.
Yeah.
Just like that. I mean, they have a separate bedroom, breakfast bar. I mean, it's super nice. People working at at downtown and other jobs really love them.
Actually, that proposed rent for studios of $12.95 is pretty good.
For downtown.
So where did you see 500?
My mortgage is less than a new studio apartment, I know that. It's how crazy rents are these days.
You are happy about that, isn't it? So you see 450 here, so in the calculation it was 500, is that what?
Yeah, it's just, the 450s will probably rent for a little less than the 500s, so that
Okay.
might affect the valuation.
Okay,
I mean, I realize that these numbers are fluid, so
okay, so,
I'm fine with concept approval.
so is that
I
your
would-
motion?
Yeah, unless someone else wants to make the motion, but I'll move concept approval of TIF of 100% of the increment,
Up to 6.
up to the numbers determined by Bill Burns and the assessor.
I'll second.
Okay. Any more questions or comments? Then all those in favor of this motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to item number 6. This is the specific implementation plan modification for sign design review, the Healthy Place on 6709 Frank Lloyd Wright. This is where the coffee place used to be Starbucks.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
All right, so we were approached by the Healthy Place to put together a sign plan for their new location in Middleton. And what you see here is what we came up with after a few different options. And Mark, I don't know if you want to explain the bit of the debacle we were in with the Middleton Hills, or
Actually, you explained it to me today, so I think you should explain it to them.
So we got approval from the client, and we asked them to go ahead and send it out to landlord approval and Middleton Hills approval. We were under the impression that we did receive Middleton Hills approval. We had an email that was sent back that we used to submit with the sign permit applications. It was yesterday at about 4 p.m. We got an email from a gentleman who was part of the Architectural Review Committee and asked why we had not ran it past them. So we had thought that we did, apparently we had not. So pending what level of approval we get from you guys today would hinge on whether or not we have approval from the Architectural Review Committee before permits would be issued. So,
One of the issues is they're concerned about having non-illuminated lighting. Did you want to touch on that? In other words, let me say that again. That's not what I meant. The sign would be non-illuminated, is what I meant to say. One of the signs would be.
yeah, that was what we thought was feedback from the Architectural Review Committee. Turns out it was not. So that would be what we have shown on Donna Drive, which is actually Frank Lloyd Wright. And so we were told that should not be illuminated, so we proposed a
correct.
non-illuminated
Okay.
version.
That's correct.
And then we were also recommended to move it from the top mount canopy down below the canopy to utilize possibly the soffit lighting that currently exists under that soffit.
As
So
shown.
that's where we arrived on the Frank Lloyd Wright sign
In
design.
other words, it's as shown.
Correct,
Shown, yep.
correct,
It was hanging down. right?
correct.
Which I think is where the Starbucks sign was.
Starbucks did not actually have a sign on Frank Lloyd Wright at all. The quote-unquote
I'd
sign,
have sworn they did.
I thought they did.
I never saw
Having-
one on
having,
that, unless
uh,
it was a different style of sign.
having,
Nice thing is we can always,
I live in the neighborhood, so I
You
didn't
probably
actu-
would know better than me
I
then.
did not actually know that the Architecture Review Committee dealt with the commercial areas, but they obviously do.
Yeah.
As a former member of the architectural review
Oh, see, that's after the, you
From-
want
Yes.
to go
But-
back to.
from Middleton Hills, I would suggest that we table this until they've got permission from the Architectural Review Board.
Well, we wouldn't allow, City of Middleton wouldn't issue us a permit without their approval as well. We have a situation where, had we, had a situation where we'd known that we actually had approval or not approval from the Architectural Review Committee, we would have had this put to bed prior to coming to you guys weeks ago. We're now behind the 8 ball. We're gonna be easily 2 weeks behind, and we've got a store location
I
opening.
think it's,
So,
I think we can look at it from the zoning perspective.
Yeah,
and
I
just
hear
make-
you, Susan, but I think
conditional
I'm
on-
going to let him speak. So.
Right, we'll just make it conditional on the
perfect.
review committee.
me, okay, I'm not, yeah, that's not, I'm just here to present what the proposal is for the signs. I guess anything else beyond that, you guys tell us.
Okay, and
So-
your motion is to defer until,
Until we have an affirmative action, response from the Architectural Review Board.
okay.
I'd prefer to try to discuss it tonight, if we
Yeah,
can.
So do you want to
within
get,
parameters, can't we, within parameters, because I understand the situation that you're in.
We can do it conditional on.
Yeah, let's, can we do something conditionally so that it would have to pass through Middleton Hills
Architecture Review Board.
Architecture Review, but at the same time, when are you opening?
We're the sign company, so we're providing the signage for them. They are planning to open within, I think, the next 5-6 weeks. Yeah,
Takes
3-4
a
weeks, sorry, 3-4 weeks. So, I mean, we're looking at, I mean, a standard production time is 15 working days. You
so
know,
David, would
that's
you consider
3
the
weeks.
conditional approval?
Sure. I mean, we've been in this position too many times, I guess, and I'm just cautious of it. If that's the view of the committee, then fine, commission.
So Mark,
Well, I have some concerns about the sign
Yes. So-
design, which it'd be just as good to hash out here first.
That's kind of
I
what
don't know if
we're
Dave-
looking for feedback on that too, both from the
I
Architecture
don't know
Review
if
Committee
Dave
and
and
the
I
city.
are supposed to abstain if we live in this neighborhood and have a. Don't need to. We don't, probably need to, but, all the other commercial signs along that strip, that corridor, have, are either kind of white or blue or red, kind of matching the architecture, and this seems kind of bright green in a way that, I mean, I don't wanna nitpick the colors, but it, at least as it's on this screen, it kind of really jumps out. So that's one concern, and then it looks a little too big for the space. And can we hear from Alder West, who is also in the neighborhood?
do you have some specific points? Mm-hmm.
And the committee has only seen the temporary signs, which we did approve. They're
The banners.
banners that will go up, so that won't delay them opening at all.
Those aren't
No, but they will have temporary signs that can go up. So this would not be delaying the opening. We have not seen, the committee has not seen these plans. I saw them, looking at the Plan Commission agenda. And I would say, I think the concern is we have stricter guidelines, and correct me, David, if I'm wrong on that, than the city does for signage. And we have,
Okay, so, you know,
well,
the-
may I finish? And so we've had quite a few disagreements between businesses about the signs, and we prefer not to have to negotiate. I think it would be wise to get the Architectural Review Committee's approval first and then come back to the city in case we change something.
Okay, thank you, Susan.
So the question becomes, I'd be disinclined to vote for it as it is, because it just doesn't seem to fit, right? So maybe delaying is best. I don't know, do you represent the company?
No, is there anyone from the company?
We're both from Sign Art
Is
Studio.
Is the reason for the being different and the font, is that like their corporate branding? So-
This is their logo, yeah. We didn't
logo.
design, we designed the placement of the sign, if you will, if that's a design even
Okay.
thing. The color is their logo color, the green is their logo color. We did produce and provide the Pizza Bruta signs. Those, we do have a canopy mounted sign on the parking lot side. We did include that in our submittal.
Well, we'll just go.
As well as the wall sign, we did the craftsman, then craft, or craft and then craftsman. So as far as
Yeah.
color and whether it's canopy mounted and size, you know, we went from kind of I won't say precedent, but from what was approved before as far as size goes. Color use, we've never experienced.
So the
questions
size of Pizza
about it.
Brut is because it's in a larger
Band.
not the, and I realize that,
Larger
right, a
vertically,
different
or-
Erdman brother owns different sides of the street, right? That's,
I don't know.
They're both the same, yeah,
they're all Dan?
yeah.
I will say I don't disagree with you on the Frank Lloyd Wright side. That is a little
Big.
It's certainly big for sure.
Is it on this drawing, right? The second one down is hanging below the canopy?
No.
That doing?
I don't know. I can't tell exactly which drawing you're looking at.
Street.
Which street? Because this is labeled as Donna Drive, but it's really Frank Lloyd.
Yeah.
The Frank Lloyd Wright Street.
Yeah, that was what we thought the Architectural Review Committee told us to do. What we found out was that it was just the building owner that told us that. We thought the email that we received was the Architectural Review Committee's comments. We adjusted our plan to accommodate those comments.
Okay,
But
let
they were
me
from
ask
the building
Let me
owner.
ask the question again.
Yes,
The Healthy Place logo in the second drawing down is hanging below the base of along the bottom of the column,
correct,
of the canopy, I should say.
correct,
And the bottom one is sitting on the top edge of the canopy.
correct. We
And
wanted
they're
them
both
all to be
out
the
on
same.
the front edge.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, both of them towards the front edge on the canopy mount, the top canopy mount for the parking lot side and the Century Avenue side. And then the idea on the other one was to mount under the canopy and catch the light from the soffit.
Okay, what's wrong with the Starbucks coffee sign in terms of size?
Yeah, and wall mounted rather than canopy.
I think that there, on that side, I don't have any, I take no issue with that. We could do a wall-mounted sign there, and I think it would serve them just fine on Frank Lloyd Wright. The Century Avenue side and the grocery store parking lot facing side, we feel they need more exposure because of the traffic. That we feel is an underserving sign to Starbucks. We propose canopy mounted, again, based on what we had done for Pizza Bruta. We had thought the idea of top canopy mounted would be okay. We didn't go any larger than what was approved for Pizza Bruta.
On the parking lot side?
Both parking lot side and Century Avenue. Now, of the two, Century Avenue we feel is the most important for exposure. We also would be very open to reducing the size of the parking lot sign, the parking lot side as well.
Do you have a drawing here somewhere of the Century Avenue, where it would be on the Century Avenue?
The canopy.
It's shown there in the rendering underneath. It says Century Avenue right above it.
Right here.
It's on the first page.
Okay.
Don't know which one I'm
Now,
looking at.
the reason the Starbucks sign may be
On the screen to the
underperforming,
right,
right,
yeah.
Oh, on the
is the
screen.
design idea of the neighborhood is kind of neighborhood walkability, not large signs to capture arterial through traffic. Right? So, that one's the least objectionable to me. On the Century Avenue one,
Still too big.
yeah.
The better exposure to Century Avenue for the going home traffic, which is presumably where most of your business will occur, is on the Frank Lloyd Wright side, isn't it? Because there you see the full sign.
So what is the size of your letters here?
It's 17 inches. It's
17 inches.
Reasonably
How big was
modest,
the Starbucks?
reasonably modest sign.
I don't have information exactly what size the Starbucks
So
is.
you couldn't put it just on that
Yeah,
kind
absolutely.
of
we
red,
can.
would it be better on
On
that?
the wall or the canopy?
On the canopy, on the red,
On
rather than
the
on
wall
red.
where it is, yes,
Better on the wall where it is.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's, obviously, we have no control over that opinion. I've been in the sign industry for 20 years, and, I mean, Starbucks is not there. I don't know why they're not there.
They opened down the
They
street.
opened down the street for,
Okay.
the-
They
so they
wanted
could
to
have
drive
a,
through. Drive-through.
Drive-through, okay.
and get away from all those,
The
middle
location
school
did well
kids.
for them. It wasn't, the location wasn't bad for them. They just wanted to drive through and do
Okay.
even better.
I don't wholeheartedly agree with the sentiments. However, again, we're, the one on Century Avenue is the one we feel is the most important to their exposure. We're absolutely, we are here to hear your comments. I mean, there's nothing else we really have control over. Mounting on the wall, sure. I think what the result is, to be honest, David, is a very cramped looking sign with not enough breathing room. And so by moving it to the canopy, it gives it a bit of a different feel to where it doesn't necessarily have to relate to that very short wall, wall height that the Starbucks sign was moved to. So
But
from a,
sitting on top of the,
correct.
not
Yes.
sitting on the face. Can
Sitting
it
on
sit
top of the
face
canopy.
canopy?
It's sitting on top of the canopy. It'd be a canopy mounted sign. Yeah, so if you look at that section view on the top right of the drawing,
Yep.
you'll see the canopy face and how the letters will interface with that.
Yep.
So that to us brought,
I don't
kind
have
of
a
allowed
problem
it to not relate to the wall anymore. Because that wall height, I agree with, I understand the original sentiment of the development, but when it comes to signage and where a sign is placed on a wall, it should have some breathing room around it.
Right,
There's an example of this, I think, on the back side of Pizza Brutta, if I'm not mistaken, or is it Prairie Cafe, on the parking lot side?
Both have canopy mounted signs.
yeah.
Prairie Cafe and Pizza Brutta.
I've got no problem having it on the canopy, on the top of the canopy, on the parking lot side.
Can I advance?
But I
this?
think the sign ought to be half the size, three-quarters the size. And then it could fit on the wall, the Frank Lloyd Wright wall, and probably on, somewhere
Trying to
on
go to-
Century Avenue at that size as well.
Okay.
Sorry.
3/4 the height and fit on the wall for the Frank Lloyd Wright side.
Having trouble driving it.
The wall underneath the canopy. And then 3/4 of the size and then put on the wall on Century Avenue.
Yeah. What did you say, it's 17 inches, 12 inches?
It's 17 inches, 12, that's 12 inches would then make that, because I have this up, I knew you were gonna ask. 12 will turn to roughly, well, these are actually 15-inch tall letters, so, that's a 13-foot long sign. So this would be about, I would put somewhere in the realm of 10, 11 feet long.
And what is now?
They
How long
are
is the-
15 feet, 8,
Oh, okay.
so it's a substantial, that's more than 50%, I mean, that's of the size. Square
Curious to know
footage.
what the Starbucks,
I'm guessing that's about a 12-inch sign, 12-inch letter.
The wall area, I know the wall height, where Starbucks is
Height from the canopy to the
Just the brick area,
Yeah, the
the
brick.
brick band on Century Avenue is 21 inches tall. So that's
So
probably,
it's 12, yeah.
that's probably, well, how many bricks? do you-
So a 14-inch sign? Work on a 21-inch?
I would be much more agreeable with a 14-inch than 12-inch. 12-inch is pretty, 14? Who can you take
So-
notes?
Centered in the brickwork.
If this is 21 inches, then the Starbucks coffee is probably 12 inches.
Yes.
So, yeah, I think we could go up to 14 inches.
Was that on, I'm sorry, I lost track, was that on both walls or just on?
On both walls.
I agree.
So I guess.
So maybe
is-
we're back to David's original motion where we defer this to the architecture review, because otherwise it's gonna, if they
Circle back to
substantially
us.
change it, it's gonna just come back to us anyway.
Well, if we had this as an option with the condition, then we would be able to submit a permit and move on
I
with the.
think that it's gonna get
procedure.
jumbled that way. Susan,
Yeah, I'd support that then.
what's that?
I'd support that then to
Do it that
delay.
way. When would you get to this? When your
Thursday.
committee meet again? In other words, could he schedule to be back here in 2 weeks?
Yes.
Susan, you need to talk in the microphone.
Could you please come and talk?
We'll be meeting Thursday morning at 8 a.m.
Okay.
at the Prairie Cafe.
All right.
That's all we need.
If you can have us plans ahead of time to look at, I think we could probably look at them.
Yep.
There's
We-
4 architects on the committee and myself.
We did just get,
That's
talk with him today,
a lot of fun.
What?
so.
That's probably a lot of fun with all the architects.
Yeah, and,
Did say they were meeting, so.
yes,
I
this
just
Thursday.
there and draw everything out.
Okay, so why don't,
No,
Okay,
I can
so
assure you
let's
there's,
make a motion to
there's
defer this
problems.
to our next
Okay.
meeting.
I'll second
after
that.
Review by
Yeah.
Middleton Hills
okay, so any more discussion?
Architectural Review Committee.
Okay, so the motion is to defer. All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So motion passes.
The motion was.
To postpone.
To defer,
To defer.
Okay.
pending review by the
Okay.
architecture review board.
We are on to item number 7. This is the work order for tax incremental finance district theory, amendment number 10, Vanderwall and Associates.
And the idea here is that we would look at the potential for another subtraction amendment and potentially an addition.
Move to recommend approval for the work order.
Seconded.
So now what are we getting for, it's about 85 hours for 17,500. So they already did, I was in some of the sessions where you worked out those sites and things. So what is?
They've
these
looked
guys-
at some of the potential areas, but there's, the amendment process is, I mean, we're gonna do as much as we can, and I think this reflects that, but, you know, it's a very precise process.
So they're gonna
that-
fill the papers and all
Yeah,
that stuff?
Yeah, and
Okay.
they'll be doing the analysis and the analysis of the addition and, that type of thing, so.
Okay.
it's-
And we
This is-
can thank Bill for the levy limit adjustment we
Right.
get when we do
Yes,
this.
yes, which
Because
is,
he got state law change for this, so
Yeah.
that'll be a big boost.
that will absolutely be, that is huge.
Okay, any other questions or comments? All those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? So the motion passes. We are on to item number 8, comprehensive plan update, discussion, transportation goals, strategy and action. Item, discussion on land use chapter and vision statement.
And if there's anything that, of the things that I submitted on the update of the vision statement, the land use, you can either talk about it now or let me know, but Mark has prepared the transportation goal, the strategies, and action items for your review.
And mouse is not cooperating before you.
Uh-oh,
It
okay.
was going well today until the last
I
5
think
minutes.
the primary thing that I saw there, Eileen, is the revised draft vision statement for the comprehensive plan. David had some rewording that is not reflected.
Okay, I thought I got it all, but I'll double check it, okay?
Yeah.
If David has it, and he can give it to me again.
And if you look back at the recording, it was at minute 59:15, because I reviewed it last
What
night.
minute is it at?
Wow.
59:15.
Okay. That's- I
He
started
wins the
to-
day.
You do. I
So,
started to do that. and
You have
I just
insomnia
couldn't,
then?
I just couldn't sit still. So, anyway, thank you. I'll look. I love that.
Next time we'll have to go more than a minute and a half into the meeting, I guess.
It's at 59.
Oh, he said 59? Oh, I thought he said a minute 59.
So I was wondering if it would be agreeable to the group, if there are small edits like that, that we would want to send to the city
Perfectly fine.
on our own, and then we'll be reviewing this at some point.
Yeah.
But to sometimes edit by committee, it's just painstaking, but I think the bigger concepts that are, changing to the document, are the things we should be talking about.
And then what we could do is bring that forward at the next, whenever the appropriate time is, so that we can say, these were proposed changes.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so the land use looks good.
I had one comment about it, and I wondered what the group thought on this, the very first page there, that Mark's got on the screen. So what I'm understanding here is like, under existing land use, city boundary acres, 611.42, which is 10.5%. ETJ planning area outside the city, 10,939.63. So is this saying that you add those two together?
No, this is just saying that in our area, looking like in the town of Westport, ETJ, or Middleton, or Springfield, the areas, those are the numbers. We wouldn't likely, and we don't, this is presented as just a, I guess, a little bit of a contrast to show, but we don't necessarily have to review that.
Land for that, well, I guess that's sort of the question, because what the vision would be and include in the comp plan, certainly it would change the percentages if you were to think about those areas. And if we're not going to be thinking about them, then maybe we should say
Like a
that.
separate table, maybe? Do you think a separate
I
table?
think so, because I'm not sure we're really considering planning in all of these.
Right.
No, we aren't. For instance, in the town of Springfield, I would say 95% of the land is gonna
Right.
be preserved, and so, okay,
So-
separate table.
Maybe a separate table and a discussion about what the ETGA planning process is.
Yep, yep.
And just a reference to the adopted intergovernmental plans.
Yep, and we will have that in the.
Intergovernmental,
yeah.
I mean, what I'm getting at, is there, if I added up all the housing, residential areas and the acreage, that probably leads to a vision about how much we want in the future, right? For the concept for the city plan. And it may not be in the ETJ planning area, but, so I'm looking for, a concept about what are we trying to achieve?
And what we can do is we'll have a table that is showing the projected land demand and also the supply. And
Okay,
that's drawn
perfect.
from that table, but it's not the full amount of it.
Got it, yep.
It's a
That's what I'm
subset, if
looking
that
for.
makes sense.
Yep, perfect, thank you.
Good point,
I like that,
Yeah, it's
if
a
you
good
got the
idea.
edits, just send it to
Yeah.
them directly rather than talking about that now, so look at the bigger issues, so.
Yep.
Anything, Kurt, Lee, anyone else?
I'm wondering on that table, if it'd be helpful to, in addition to showing the more detailed categories, show some subtotals by major classifications, for instance, total residential.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, I guess we talked about last time combining some of these, so you're probably still doing that?
And, well, you could still show these as they are, but also have a
Yes,
subtotal,
yes.
major classification.
Maybe
Right, I
more
mean-
like the,
The major classification would be residential, kind of
Right.
employment-based land use, so commercial, business, institutional, like airport, public. How much is parks and open space and conservancy?
Right, that'd be the idea.
and it's much more like the land use trend table where I did combine a lot of them, so. That's good idea. Maybe a separate one just to keep it.
I think that
You know.
sounds.
Refer to your sense of best organization.
See, then you can look at a bigger picture there, and then if you want to dive into details, you can see that too.
So kind of like your table on the second.
Yeah, kind of like that,
Land use
maybe even,
trends.
yep. And that one could even be further combined with all the residential, but it's kind of nice to see the split as we go. That's just acres, it's not units, but I really like that trend, but anyway, I mean, what it shows, so. All right, those are really good suggestions, and I'll work on it.
This was when we talked about hyperlinks, and,
Yes.
right?
Yep,
I mean, you know,
yep, when it's finally
when it's put
done
into
and
a
published. and-
website.
Yep, that's a good point. You can dig deeper. I like that idea.
Okay, any other comments? So this is just for
On
discussion.
the land use, or we're gonna discuss transportation?
We're gonna discuss transportation. Is that, because Mark did a lot of work.
Mhm.
Unless you have, and you can always send more stuff on land use. This won't be the last time you look at it, this was just, hey, this is what I interpreted, but I'll check 59.1 minutes. And get that, and check my notes, I keep my notes from all the meetings. If anybody wants the last 31 years, they'll be in my office. Sorry, just kidding. Actually, I don't have 31 years worth, but
7.
I probably have 10. But anyway.
So you're discussing the,
Transportation.
I tried not to be too much of a road scholar
It's been waiting to use that.
before Kirk could get to it, so.
Oh.
So
Pedestrian concerns,
Oh,
that's it.
okay.
As Jen, I think, said already, if you want to edit and dialogue with me individually, I'm very happy to do that with you. Very briefly, I looked at our plan from 13 years ago and looked at a few other plans in the area, also consulted the MPO's plan, Metropolitan Planning Organization, and tried to make them pertinent to our local planning initiatives and create strategies for us here directly instead of just, focusing on regional goals. So I don't know, I don't need to walk through this, I don't think, but happy to answer any questions you have.
are there any questions for Mark?
I obviously did some general overall goals, and then I focused on the various modes. I started with pedestrians because we are all pedestrians first.
Mhm.
I like the way it's split out.
The rail sections help us stay on track, so. You knew that was
There's
coming.
no end to the puns, people.
So, as many of you know, I work in transportation planning on my day job, so I'm not gonna comment on the modeling and forecasting pieces, just to make sure there's no,
No, but since you are an expert on that one, you should provide input.
the one thing I wondered though is if you could talk a little about the City of Middleton laws regarding, like, I think in one section you did talk about, some of the review of them on a periodic basis, so I was wondering, like, biking and those types of laws, do you do a periodic review of any, like, can people bike on the sidewalk? Can adults
Oh, of
bike
our
on the
ordinances?
sidewalk?
Oh, that's a good idea. So basically going through our ordinances to identify all the ones related to transportation and what they are and what the best practices are, essentially.
If there are updates, or like, I know there's an ordinance about registering bicycles, is that worth reviewing?
There is?
I think, right?
So you mean you don't?
Well, I mean, those kinds of things
It's
would
not
be
our
good to
spokesperson.
periodically, over the planning period, look at, right?
Sure. Good point, I wrote that down.
Okay.
Also, I wondered if there might be an opportunity working with other entities to reduce barriers, so, things like, you had mentioned the super block concept that creates barriers deterring pedestrians, so I thought maybe, not only would it involve businesses or people, private individuals and their property, but it might involve different units of government, and so I thought that might be a strategy that the city would.
I didn't fully capture that. You said you
Work
wanted.
with other entities
Okay.
to reduce barriers to pedestrians,
Okay.
And I know this had come up before in the discussion we were having about the fire station sidewalk, and I guess I wondered if the city's considered putting anything about accessibility to public services by sidewalk or an
I
ADA
think that's
transition
a
plan.
very good idea. When you have that in the plan, then it should happen, so.
As an overarching goal,
Mhm.
that all public facilities should be accessible by sidewalk. Yeah, it seems like you should. With that, I like the emphasis on complete streets. I wonder if we want to even strengthen the language, because one of the things we talked about with that situation with the fire department was that you could, in essence, improve pedestrian safety by reducing the geometric design of the roadway. I mean, I'd like to see, I know this is stepping on the toes of the Public Works Committee, but I'd like to see more active consideration of road diets and reducing cartway widths to promote pedestrian safety.
What kind of widths? Reduce
The
Lane widths?
lane widths, not just lane widths, the whole way that
whole
is,
footprint?
the whole footprint. We used to call them cartway widths from curb to curb, I don't know what it's called.
I still don't understand. What kind of
Cartway?
cartway?
So you're
That might be
talking
an
about
older
lane, you're talking about
curb.
lane width?
Yes.
Is that, okay.
No, you're
Oh.
talking about the entire footprint of
Talking
this.
about the whole entire
Street you
footprint.
drive
Curb to
on.
curb.
Curb to
So
curb.
narrower streets, in other words.
Yep.
Road diets, reducing the geometric design speed.
Well, a lot of them are standard, so you're saying as they go forward, I think mostly they're 66 feet or what?
They're standard under the old engineering AASHTO model, but not under the NACTO.
Right. Yeah. We do have our transportation manual, which has reduced
Right, I was gonna refer to that.
right-of-ways.
So for example, it identifies 28-foot and 10-foot, or 20-foot wide streets. I don't remember what the right-of-ways were, but it was less than 66.
Okay. And I think in
Balancing-
Milton Hills, they're about
balancing
28 feet wide.
Balancing.
Pedestrian and traffic uses, I guess, is what it is.
I don't want to say balance.
You don't
I want to say prioritizing pedestrian.
Prior-
If
okay,
it means,
prioritize,
if it means
okay.
inconveniencing and slowing down cars,
Fine.
that's a good thing.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe the overarching goal should be, stop designing cities for cars.
Well, that gets to
Start
this,
designing cars for cities.
that gets to the last page of my
Pretty
memo, which I was going, hoping there'd be some discussion. So
Yeah.
this language is not mine, it's verbatim from Portland, Oregon, where it's beginning with the word implement. That is from Portland.
Yeah.
And, you know, this
Which page are
is,
you on, Mark?
this is on the last page of my
the
text
screen.
memo. It's on the screen,
Oh.
yep. So it is, I just lifted it, and rather than try and phrase it and make it mine, I just thought, let's talk about it before I spend that effort, take that effort. Or make that effort.
Headed the right direction, Mark.
But, you know, a lot of this is pretty progressive. I mean, this is pretty, you know, and I'm not opposed to it by any means. I just want to make sure that there's direction before we make a major step forward, if you will.
Yeah, I don't know what we could do, you know, the pedestrians,
Joe.
like if you're in California, the pedestrians have right of way, so if you just put step in there and people stop.
Well, but this is really about
That's
attitude.
enforcement,
Yeah.
but I don't know if there's anything we can do in the plan itself.
But this is about, I guess, attitude, you know, the attitude of the city and how you design for pedestrians first, bicycling second, transit. My coworker, or maybe it was Eileen actually, Eileen or Abby suggested talking about accessibility too, you know, people who are differently abled. That's missing from here, but.
I mean, it goes to the whole idea also of, you know, removing parking on certain sides of the street to promote free flow of traffic. Well, actually, street parking is one of the best traffic calming devices we have.
That's true.
We want to actually slow down cars, not just by posting speed limit signs, but by actually creating physical design conditions that force people to slow down, to make pedestrians safer. And that is a progressive change. from an engineering model. An older engineering model. I know that Wayne, they teach this stuff over at the traffic safety school.
Boy, he's picking on you, Wayne.
No, I'm appreciating what, I mean, engineers now are not trained the same way.
Right.
Correct, yeah.
Concept in terms of prioritizing the pedestrian and sort of the components that are the basis for everyone is a pedestrian. Everyone's, you know, they start their trip with walking and end their trip with walking as a pedestrian, so.
That makes sense. So do you have enough input, Mark?
I've got some good feedback, and I know Jen's gonna send me some more.
Yeah,
Sounds
she's going to
like.
send you a lot more.
I think she rewrote the section, so that's good.
Yeah.
I have a few comments and questions, Mark. First of all, I want to say, I thought you did a very good job with this.
Oh, thank you.
So, working around the edges. But I have some refinements on the transportation goal, and I'll email.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't very
Kind of
pleased.
more wordsmithing than anything.
And I would welcome that, because I struggled with rewriting it, and at the very end, I made it 2 sentences, and I didn't like how it came out, so it was just, at this point, the packet had to go.
Question I have under pedestrian, the first bullet is requiring developers to construct sidewalks along all new streets, including private streets. Question, what about promoting the development of walking paths within plan development?
I'm sorry, what about walking?
Walking paths.
Walking paths, in addition, you know, clearly requiring sidewalks, but also
Oh, I see.
encouraging the development of additional paths where the site has sufficient room to allow that. Let's see, what else did I have? Going back to parking, you say update the city's parking standards by eliminating minimum parking requirements. I'm wondering, rather than saying eliminating, should it be provide greater flexibility?
Eliminate or reduce, yeah.
I think I like that word, flexibility.
By reducing?
So by reducing
Well, but
or allowing flexibility.
I actually-
That's what we said in the land use chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had actually originally used the word reducing. The reason I said eliminating is because Madison and a number of communities have changed to maximum parking standards, and so, which is then eliminating. So that's why eliminating the minimums. How would you like it to read in terms of incorporating the flexibility concept?
I was thinking something like, by providing greater flexibility in meeting parking requirements, something like that. I mean, you're still gonna have requirements of some sort, it's providing greater flexibility in how those are met.
I still like the idea of maybe adding the phrase potentially eliminating in some places. I mean, it's the idea that we're overparked anyway. Let the market provide the number of parking spaces
Yeah, okay.
needed and not.
Yep.
So you see that happening in next 15, 20 years?
Yeah, a lot of cities are already doing it. It reminds me, the best idea I ever read on a book on sustainable urbanism, it says, go through zoning code, everything that's a minimum, make it a maximum, everything that's a maximum, make it a minimum. You'll pretty much solve your problems.
Wait, I gotta write that down.
So it's minimum densities and maximum parking rather than the other way around, but, anyway.
And one other question, Mark, under, let's see, bullet point, say, under roadways, second page, discourage the development of private streets because they negatively impact street network, help me understand how that relates to certain developments where an HOA would be responsible for private streets.
We had some debate about this at the staff level. The reason why I included this is because we have had several, I'm thinking of a couple in particular, subdivisions where people, after they moved in and realized the homeowners realized they had to take ownership of the street, maintenance, they actually actively contacted the city. Susan West would tell you this story, I think, where they said, can the city take this on? Obviously, we use private streets where the development can't meet public street standards. And I have no problem at some level with flexibility for that, to allow that sort of flexibility. I think our Public Works Department in the past, understandably, because of concerns about city vehicles and maintenance and all those things, has said, look, if you can't meet our standards and we can't get our equipment in there, or creates liability or unacceptable risk, you're gonna have to take care of it yourself. At least there's been the flexibility to allow those developments to go forward. So in that sense, it's good. I think there is a place for private streets. But I'm hoping that with this plan and what's been happening with engineers being trained now to be a bit more, context sensitive, thank you. That there's now more of a thought that we can have narrower streets and have them be public streets. Middleton Hills has shown that works, as have some other neighborhoods. Cedar Ridge, I think, Dan, your area. Yep. So, in a roundabout way, what I'm trying to say is, I guess, ideally, it wasn't meant to be a pun, it just happens naturally.
Sure.
It was not meant to be a pun. What I'm trying to say is that, streets like Chickahawk that are really hard to develop as a public street. I said the word discourage intentionally. That doesn't mean it can't be done. Yeah, but we really are trying to steer developers to have public streets so that we can forestall some of the problems that arise.
Okay, that helps. I wasn't clear to the extent to which we're actively discouraging that versus actually encouraging in some instances the streets to be. What I hear is whenever possible, they should be private. I mean, public.
Yes, that's what I intended. If you're okay with that, if you have some different language, feel free to.
That was more from my understanding.
Yeah.
Okay, any further input?
Just one question, a comment, Mark, about what you said about using Portland Oregons. I think at this point in time, it would be useful to put in brackets in the text that you did it,
Yeah,
right? Just the source of it, so that you know as you go along and finalize it. I've either plagiarized this little bit, or I've got permission to lift it, or I've made it, wordsmithed it enough so that it's not quite the same, and that you know that you're doing it.
Well, if Professor Paulson ultimately signs off on it, then it's okay, right?
I'm not the citation police.
No, I appreciate that. I was already thinking that we would, if we do lift something and it's essentially verbatim, that we should give that
Doesn't have to
citation.
appear at the end of the day. You can work your way around it, but whilst it's in this stage, I think.
We all learned that in school, you can't plagiarize, but then what I discovered when I joined the city is that Fitchburg and Middleton had the same zoning code. And consultants all the time are switching out names of cities when they're,
The joke is that the most important skill to learn as a consultant, cut and paste.
Yeah, and change the city name.
I guess just one more comment or thing that might be useful in this context is the discussion of the trolley in here. I think it says something about continue trolley service. As it encourage it.
I don't even remember if I kept that in there. It is in
Yes,
there.
it is in there.
I debated taking that out. I've heard that it's being reviewed as to whether to preserve that.
It's the last one under public transit
Yep.
on page 7 and 14.
Yep.
Continue to support alternative transit routes such as Middleton Trolley and improve signage at stop locations. I think there's some things that maybe we could suggest to help the public know when the trolley's running or where it goes. That would improve service even better. So I guess I would encourage you to add something about facilitating
you know.
Public awareness of schedules, or
Yeah,
there's some,
exactly.
there's some, you know, terminology I can come up with that, it's basically real-time, well, not real-time data, you're not asking that, but making sure that there's a way to educate, it's an educational
Yes.
component, so.
Okay, anything further? David, you have something? Anyone else?
Just, I guess,
Yes, go
a
ahead.
comment for discussion is, I would like to see the language about identifying a potential BRT route into Middleton be stronger, rather than we'll continue to think about trying to get them to maybe get around to, right? I think as a plan, we should state, right, it is our hope, or our goal, to eventually have BRT from Madison to serve Middleton.
Abby and I talked about this today, and it's a great suggestion. I think the University Avenue corridor would be a perfect candidate for
Yeah,
it.
I mean, the belt line to the campus.
But the
Yeah.
problem is it's not wide enough, right?
It's wide enough.
Well, figure that out.
Okay.
We don't need 4 lanes
Yeah.
of traffic if we have BRT.
The reason why I'm not as, I decided not to focus on it as actively as you mentioned, although I'm happy to add that if that's the will of the, if that's the direction I'm given, certainly happy to add that. To me, it's, you know, it's not so much exactly what we call the service, is we want more robust transit service.
Right.
And the BRT that's going to be implemented, phase one, as early as 2023, is going to be the east-west line running through downtown Madison out to Hilldale, then south to Mineral Point or Odana Road, basically to Westtown, and then across the Beltline to University Ridge, is that what it's called? University Park, or, Research Park, thank you. And so that's going to be the spine of the BRT. Well, we're going to want to connect to that with really frequent, and I would say limited service, not limited service, express service. And whether ours is technically BRT or not is not as important to me as I'd like to see us have more frequent service, like 15-minute service along University Avenue. So I'll take another shot at this. And
The reason I think about it is that BRT is not just a transportation strategy, it's a land
brand,
use strategy.
yeah.
And so it's the fixity of the stations, which David has designed quite well around the world. The fixity of the stations both makes you certain that high-capacity transit will be available, but also you develop higher densities around it with perhaps no parking because it's on a BRT line. So if you look at the BRT in other cities, it's the transit-oriented development
Right.
you get.
And we see that along the University corridor with all the, Sonic and Chicken Run, and obviously some of the other land uses that are, not as high, as actively used as they could be, right? The highest and best use, it's not the case right now along University, and we see that corridor connecting Madison and Hilldale with Middleton and our business parks. I mean, that's really what we're planning for. So it's a good comment. And I agree with you that once BRT is also a branding. It's basically commuter rail, but with rubber tires on the road. And Gurdeep, Mayor, as you were mentioning, the space issue is a constraint on University Avenue. The idea is that you want transit vehicles to be unencumbered and have the priority as they travel. And with Mineral Point Road, there is an outside lane for much of Mineral Point Road where the BRT and bikes can operate, and in theory, there's no cars ever blocking them. We don't have that luxury on University Avenue. We're not going to widen University.
Yeah.
So, but you can do things with signal timing and prior. There's a lot of things that can be done along University. Whether it ultimately becomes BRT or not remains to be seen. I've also thought about having the BRT line go up Allen Boulevard to Middleton Springs and have that be a terminus, because for equity reasons. We have it's a more affordable part of the city, workforce housing area of the city. And from there, there's connections around the lake and up to Wanakee, and it just could be that could be a major transit center as well. So whether it's BRT or express buses, is not as important, I think, as just planning the land use strategy, as Kurt mentioned. for TOD.
Word scheduling probably ought to be in there somewhere.
Scheduling.
Scheduling of service.
Frequency at which, right?
More frequently scheduled service is what you mean, or more, what are you?
And if there is a bus transit going, you know, the Madison Transit, then it wants to tie into it so that you don't wait 15 minutes, that kind of schedule.
Time points, coordinated service is what
Yeah,
you're saying.
like a lot of people go to the
Average
West
headways.
Point and they're sitting there, so. And then I don't know whether you have or not doing something about the weekends, especially Sundays?
I mentioned adding service on Sundays. I did mention that.
Okay,
Here it is. Introduce and maintain Sunday bus service.
okay. Any other points? Okay, so this is just for discussion. We move on to item number 9,
Road ahead.
5-year street improvement plan. It's for approval
And the
and
comment-
sending it to the common council.
Yep. Comments that I included were lifted from Sean Stowski. He provided them to me. Do that. Just explaining, you know, that it's using the, ASO rating, functional classification, and the potential for utility work that's needed, and putting it all together, for the 5-year. And then he also included the one from a year ago, so you can see.
Eileen, in referring this to the Plan Commission, were they looking for input related to any particular questions or issues?
I think if there's a project that we know about, that we wanna let them know about, or something that, you know, or a concern that we have, or an issue that's maybe not addressed yet, yeah, we could certainly provide that if there was.
Okay, but they were not
It wasn't
identifying
specific.
anything in
It
particular?
wasn't specific, it was just,
Yeah.
hey, you know, are there any, I mean, I'm just assuming it's
Well, if
whether
you
there's any
think-
projects or anything that we're aware of that we think, well,
Right.
hey, you might not wanna do that because we're looking at a TIF project, or, you know, something like that.
And also, if you're aware of some road which you think might be missing here, and you think, you know, that's okay to point out. Okay, any other comments? Otherwise, need a motion to approve and recommend to the city council?
Let me just ask a question. Mark, given that your work on the transportation plan, do you see anything here that is conflict or anything that would be helpful for us to flag?
I'll take a look at this again through that lens. I didn't do that specifically, but just from a quick cursory, I mean, I've been familiar with this plan every year that it's updated. You know, none of our major streets where we might consider some design changes, you know, are jumping out at me here as being on this list. So, except for Parmenter north of Century, and that we're planning to ultimately that will be improved with development. So everything else is basically a neighborhood street. So, I'm sorry, Q is also, that actually is the most important one to talk about, Highway Q, and we have already started talking internally about making sure that we have sidewalks along Q, both sides of Q, which we lack right now on the northeast side of the city. Bike lanes and such. So yes, and I mentioned
Along
that,
the speed?
and I did mention that in the plan. I did mention Highway Q in the plan.
I think Clark Street shown, I might be 2021.
I was just gonna say that.
Yeah.
I see Clark Street.
Yeah, so I think that might
Yellow.
be just something to coordinate, they're aware of this project, you know, public-
Oh, right.
something to coordinate with them.
Oh, yeah. Because the
Probably work out
apartments are
pretty
coming online in 2021, so you don't wanna do
Right.
this until those are done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
But if he opens in April and then they do the road work
sure,
this summer,
yep,
and the redesign then could focus on that cul-de-sac.
yeah.
Yeah, I didn't carefully look. There's a Lakeview Boulevard, I think, which needs some work. I imagine that's.
Which one,
still there.
Lakeview? That's 2023 in here, right?
Okay, so
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay, so,
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that bad, but it's, okay.
And of course, this winter was incredibly
This winter
tough
was
on
horrible.
all our roads.
There's so much.
I know.
Mark, for clarity, does the Q project include the sidewalks? Or is that a separate?
No, it includes, we've started talking internally, I think it's in 2020, sorry,
I
this
thought it
keeps
was-
helping, 2022. We haven't started any design work, but Sean and I have talked about that. The street's wider than it needs to be, given that it doesn't have on-street parking. It's basically could be a 4-lane road. Whether it's designed that way or it becomes 2-lane with, we haven't had those discussions yet. But I want to make sure that there's sidewalks and bike accommodations on that road, because that's the major connection to, obviously, Bishop's Bay and North Lake.
The Mark County is paying for that, right? Or half of it, or,
For Highway Q,
yeah,
if that still is I mean, the county would
they
improve.
still own it.
They still own it, and their policy is, before they jurisdictionally transfer streets, whether that's even something they want to jurisdictionally transfer, I don't know. But that would be their policy, is our expectation that they improve it to city standards before.
Well, we don't want them to transfer if possible, so,
Well,
Why, you don't wanna keep plowing it,
yeah,
maintaining it? Yeah.
it's their job. So,
Sounds like the Buckeye Road.
did we have a
I don't think
motion?
there was a motion yet, or if there was,
Move
I
to
missed it.
approve the 5-year plan.
Okay, thanks.
Need a second, okay, so any other further
Was that
questions?
for relief? Okay.
Kurt.
Okay, so, all those in favor of approving this and recommending to the council, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, so the motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn. Or
Okay, we are adjourned.